gentlemen, welcome to the program. I am your host, Chris George Zuger, and to my right across the aisle from me is my co-host, Alchemical Alex, or Alchemist Alex. We're going to try a new nickname for him every single day of the week, I guess. And this is the Den of Lore. Grab yourselves a glass of scotch, pull your chair up to the fire, because we are going to learn some cool shit tonight from a fantastic man. Richard Cassaro is on the program this evening. We have an early show, and we are going to be learning about the missing link, the God Self icon, maybe a little bit about Freemasonry and triptychs and magical Egypt too. We're just going to go wherever the conversation takes us, because that is the type of show. It is a Friday night, St. Patrick's Day. Grab yourselves whatever drink you have, whether it's Jameson. We've got some Glen, and I got some rye here. We're going to have a fun-filled evening, as we always do. And also, we're going to have a update from our cryptozoologist in the field, Mr. Denver Michaels, at the end of the show on his Send Denver Michaels a Sandwich contest. So if you have entered the Send Denver Michaels a Sandwich contest, please do tune in till the end of the show, because we are going to give an update on the entries thus far. Yeah, and also there is one cool thing that we are going to be talking about, and that is the fact that we have gone video, full high definition. We're going to be trying out this for the show, and you get to interact with us here, and get to make fun of my, my stubble,
hat.
my hat, my poor boy hat. But first and foremost, let me welcome to the show Mr. Clay Roop, who has an update on our John Anthony West project fundraising. Clay, are you there, sir?
Yes, I am. I am here in the Catskills, about 25 feet from John's studio, trying to stay warm. We got hammered with about 3 to 4 feet, depending where you're at. So it's the largest amount of snow I've seen.
Yeah,
oh, sorry. I think it's a delay.
Well, I was going to say, we got hit by the same snowstorm a couple hours after you did, and it kind of skipped over most of Ottawa. We got about 2.5 feet, and some parts of Quebec, it was the worst snowstorm they'd had in a very long, many years.
Right.
So I'm glad you're safe.
I'm not used to this kind of stuff. I'm from Texas, so we don't have snowstorms. But speaking of Texas, I just got back we did 5 days down in Houston, myself and Zoe West, his daughter. We met up with his son Zeke and his wife Celesta. So we spent a good amount of time with him, and it's a long process, but there was good news in the fact that it appears at this point the cancer is not necessarily in remission, but it's not growing. It has ceased for the moment. So that's the good news. So it looks like the treatment at this point is effective. The downside is he also just got hit with some pneumonia. So if we can power through that, then we're going in a really good direction.
Well, that's always good to be able to get that update. I know that a lot of people have been pulling for John worldwide, and it's good to know that there's at least progress. Hopefully the pneumonia is something that can be taken care of, and he recovers from that. I've gone through pneumonia myself. I know it's quite the kick in the ass, but we here at the Den of Lore are pulling for him. Now, if you can give an update to the listeners at home how they can contribute to the fund, as I know that is still going until the end of the month.
Yes, and I definitely want to take a moment to say that purely 100% based upon that fundraiser, so all of his fans and the people that look up to John and like his work, that's the only reason why he's even being treated right now, and to get the feedback that it has been effective is pretty awesome. So that is as 100% from all those who have contributed. So we're 3/4 of the way there. Now this was based upon just the treatments, not the he's been almost 2 weeks dealing with this. And actually, we went quiet a little bit on the updates for a little while, and that had something to do with it, because it's, that's two things that now you have to deal with. And, I don't want to go and blow smoke up on the updates saying, oh, he's doing great. It was a tough, side issue to deal with, but it's more surmountable than the initial problem, which is cancer. So, again, it's good news and bad news. But, yeah, we're not there yet, but all the contributions are still going and helping, and we're showing progress, and we're happy about what we have, but we also know that this could be a little bit longer process than we expected due to the additional issue. But we're happy where we're at right now.
Good. Well, that's fantastic to hear. I did place links in the show notes for anybody who wants to make a donation to the Clay Roops Fundly campaign, as well as anybody who does not use credit card but has PayPal. There is a link in the notes as well. All of the funds go directly to the...
that goes directly to Zoe West's account.
So, again, give if you can, even if it's a couple of dollars. As they say, few drops of water make long work of large stones. And especially if you are a fan of Dr. Robert Schoch and John Anthony West's work, that could sometimes be tens of thousands of dollars, and you can have a TV special at the end of it. So what I'm saying is that no matter how small the contribution, every single little bit helps in getting the treatment for John Anthony West. And we're going to be pushing this for the next 4 shows. So expect an update from us at the beginning of every single show to give a progress report on the Fundly campaign. And Clay, again, thank you very much for taking the time to join us on the Den of Lore to give us that update. I know one of the...
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Sorry, a little delay. I was just going to say, and I'll let you finish, that I'm going to stick around and listen to the show. I just got home. It is St. Patrick's Day, so I will need to go to the store and get a 4-pack of Guinness. So, but about half an hour later, I'll be around. So if you ever need me to chime in, I'll be here.
Well, it's much appreciated. And again, if you want to join in on the YouTube chat, you are more than welcome to interact with us there while we are doing that. And while you're cracking those Guinness, we've got some rye and some Monster, it looks like, in a non-alcoholic form. But again, thank you very much for joining us on the show and for the evening. Yes, definitely we'll get you to give us an update near the end of the show on how things are, and to be able to help us drive those donations to where they need to get to.
All right, I'll see you. I'll be around.
All right,
Look on the show.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. I know that we've been doing a lot of work, Alex, you and I, to try and get that word out. And again, I also want to give a good shout out to a very special man, which is Cameron Wiltshire from Sacred Geometry International, who's been helping us organize the massive fundraising, big help. He's a nexus, and we've been doing some good work with Clay, especially with our telethon episode 22. Listen, the 7.5, almost 8-hour massive marathon of awesome that was that show. We had Graham Hancock on, we had Randall Carlson, we had Laird Scranton, Dr. Robert Schoch, we had Ed Nightingale, and that was if there's anything that I can take away from this is that when you've got a friend that's in trouble, you help him out, and he's got some very good friends, some very, very cared for friends. And what are you pointing at?
I think I'm gonna have to wear that hat.
That hat? Okay, well, if you can actually wear it. I tried. The headphones don't.
Now that we've got video on.
Now that we have video on, we can wear the hat. So
John Anthony West hat.
So Clay, I'm going to let you go just so you can leave your cell phone free and you're not going to kill your battery. And we'll talk to you in a couple hours.
Right on. I'll be around.
Fantastic, and enjoy the Guinness, sir.
We will be raffling off this hat. It's part of the fundraiser.
As part of the fundraiser, get everyone to sign it. And let's see if we can just get a nice little, there we go, little cover up the, just put that right there. See, it would be cool if I could send this around the world and get everyone to sign it, like, Laird and all them, and then actually have that raffled off.
Don't become an Egyptologist without one of those hats.
Oh, you can't, no.
It's not quite a fedora. What do you call that?
You know what? I actually don't know. If anyone knows what kind of hat this is,
The archaeologist's fedora can be yours.
this can be
For a donation to the John Anthony West campaign.
We'll worry about that. Now, I know that Richard is on the line. Now, Richard is kind of one of the researchers that I've been following for a very, very long time. And I'm just going to bring up his... The one thing that I didn't do is get the promo, or not the promo, the...
That's all right.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Bring him in here.
So, Richard, how you doing?
Good. How's it going, guys?
Good. Now, I just wanted to read your bio out here quickly. And I know that you've got quite the storied career. Like, you actually had your first book written in stone, which was a wide-ranging explanation, or exploration, I should say, of the hitherto unknown connections among Freemasons, medieval cathedral builders, and the creators of important ancient monuments. Supports your theory that spiritually advanced mother culture, which has been lost to history, is behind many of the world's architectural and artistic traditions. Now, prior to the publication of Written in Stone, it says here that you enjoyed a successful career as a U.S. Correspondent for a major Italian publishing house, and you were a managing editor for a popular U.S. magazine, as well as a consultant to print and broadcast media. And also as a ghostwriter for best-selling esoteric authors. Now, I also see here that you're a graduate of Pace University in New York City, and that you have examined firsthand the ancient ruins and mythical traditions of Egypt, Mexico, Greece, Italy, Sicily, France, England, India, Peru, and Spain, and that you've lectured on your theories to great acclaim in the United States, Egypt, Italy, Spain, and Peru, and so on as you are a world traveler. Richard Cassaro, welcome very much into the Den of Lore. I raise my glass to you, sir, now that I can actually do this on video, and it is an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on the program.
Thanks very much. Ching ching.
Ching ching, and happy St. Paddy's Day to you. Now, to kick things off, you have quite the storied career, as I've just read out here. And I'm going to get the cat out of the bag, as I know that there are some brothers that are listening. I do have many of my own lodge brothers who are avid listeners to the show. I being a Freemason and quite the not avowed one, but I do advertise it on a regular basis. It's kind of one of the hooks of the show. And you are a Freemason yourself, is that correct?
Yeah, I joined in 2000.
Wow, so you've been a Mason a lot longer than I have.
Yeah.
Now, you joined in, you don't live in New York City at the moment. You live in Europe, correct?
Yeah, I moved to Madrid 2 years ago, Madrid, Spain. I was born in New York City and raised in New York most of my life.
I've been in New York a bunch of times. It's kind of like my home away from home. Mostly Manhattan. I just love the pubs down there. Love the restaurants. Love the food. The lovely, friendly people. That's a beautiful.
I might hear a touch of the New York accent there.
Just a touch. Now, how did you join? Like, everyone's story for joining Freemasonry is different, and I know that for most people, it's a certain type of person that's usually looking for light or looking for knowledge. What was your story getting into the craft, and how did that lead into getting into the type of research that you do?
Cool, that's a great question. In a nutshell, I traveled in 1996 or 1997, I can't remember at the moment, but I think it was 97, I traveled back to back, Egypt and Mexico. I was looking for more evidence of cultural parallels between the Maya and the Egyptians specifically. We all know about the pyramids. There's, lots of parallels with the pyramids, and there's other parallels with corbel vault architecture and sun worship and all this other stuff, but I was really looking for more. And what I found was that these two cultures both built what I call triptych temples, three-door temples. And so I found it in Egypt, and then right quickly after that, I found it in Mexico among the Maya. And then I came back to New York. I was living in New York, and walking around Manhattan as I used to do all the time, I walked past Rockefeller Center one day, 30 Rockefeller Plaza, where they put the Christmas tree up every year. And I noticed that it was a triptych, and I had already realized that both the Egyptians and the Maya built triptych temples, what I call triptych. It's a phrase I coined. And I recognized that there was a god in the center doorway, and then there was a male and female, twin male and female figures occupying the outer two doorways. And at that time, that was gelling with my studies of the Egyptians and the Maya. And if you look closely, the god in the center doorway has a compass in his hand. That's a Masonic compass. And so it was very shortly after that, maybe 3 or 4 months, that I started to recognize that that compass is a Masonic. And this is like the mid-'90s. The internet was just taking off, you know. It wasn't like it is today where everybody knows what Freemasonry. I had no idea what Freemasonry was. And so I saw that compass and I put it together. I said, that's a Masonic compass. I learned about the Freemasons, the Masonic fraternity. And I said, I started to see this triptych pattern all over New York City and all over other cities, and not just in the U.S., but across the world. And it wasn't very long before I realized that this triptych that I was seeing was a Masonic thing. It's a Masonic triptych. And I said, man, I got to join these guys. These guys have all the wisdom, you know. I'm going to join, and I'm going to just, you know, find out all the answers. And so I went down to the lodge on 23rd Street, and they were all very, very, very nice. I just felt at home very quickly. I joined, and I learned probably within the first 3 months that, you know, I knew more about esoteric and ancient cultures than pretty much everybody, which I was surprised at, because I figured I was going to join and they would give me all the answers. But probably within about 6 months, I was lecturing and giving them everything that I had learned up until that point. And this is 17 years ago. And so the whole reason why I joined was because of the triptych, was because I recognized that this ancient temple pattern, this triptych temple pattern, was being built by cultures, not just the Egyptian and the Maya, by the way, but cultures across the world. All the so-called pyramid cultures, what I call the pyramid cultures, they all built triptych temples. And I recognized right away that the Masons, foremost among all secret societies, built their lodges, their halls, their temples with triptych pattern. And so that's what led me to Freemasonry, and that's why I joined.
Now, I know the lodge down 23rd Street. I've got a few friends who go to lodge there. Manhattan Lodge was the first lodge that actually it was St. John's Lodge was the first one. They're the ones that have the Bible that George Washington did his inauguration with.
Right.
And Manhattan Lodge was the second, and I can tell you Manhattan Lodge is if I'm not mistaken, they're kind of a Filipino ethnic style lodge. Like a lot of the guys there are from the Philippines, but one of the things I've always found that's amazing about Freemasonry is it's a fraternity. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter the religion that you are, it doesn't matter where you come from, you come in as family. And, you know, those guys, oh man, that was a very, very... we had a fantastic lodge of instruction on the 3rd degree, and then we went up to the top floor for festive board, and they just proceeded to get me absolutely drunk with the best food and the best hospitality and a lot of beer. And it was some of the best hospitality I've had from my traveling days in the States. So I haven't gone very many places, but one thing I got to say is, Freemasonry as a whole, when it comes to New York Freemasonry, it's about fraternity is a big thing there. And, you know, the knowledge, most of the guys there are so knowledgeable about their stuff. And when it comes to the amount of symbolism that's been put into cities like New York, like Philadelphia, like Boston, like I can totally see how somebody who's getting into it can get that symbolism and learn from it and be able to kind of pull that knowledge in. So when you're dealing with things like the triptych, what are some of the similarities that you've seen worldwide in terms of the triptych itself?
Well, the triptych, I read a lot of books. I found the triptych, and I said to myself, well, when I first found it in Egypt and Mexico, I said, well, there's got to be, because there were a lot of Victorian scholars in the 1800s that believed that that looked at all these parallels. They were archaeologists, they were historians. They saw the parallels. They saw, they were excavating in Mexico and in Peru, and they said, look, there's pyramids here just like there are in Egypt. There's mummies here just like there are in Egypt and the old world, in Babylon and Sumer and a lot of these other cultures in China and India, etc. So, they were the first ones to say, there's a connection here, they were the first ones to say that this connection might be the sort of missing link to Atlantis that we've all we've been hearing throughout history. It's important to understand that in Victorian times, in the late 1800s, scholars believed that the parallels that we see among ancient cultures were explained by the idea of Atlantis, that there was a mother culture in history, in ancient remote history, and this mother culture was responsible for, the parallels that we see among all the so-called pyramid cultures. And so when I first came upon the triptych, I said, okay, let me find out now who talked about this, because I didn't think I would be the first person to ever discover it. And so I started reading books and going into all the scholarly texts. Anybody that talked about Atlantis, Helena Blavatsky, Dion Fortune, Julius Evola, Fulcanelli, Mystery of the Cathedrals, Manly Hall, Gurdjieff. I read every single book I could come across, and nobody talked about it. And I said, I can't be the only person to actually have understood this and seen this. It doesn't make any sense to me. And little by little, I started to realize that I was, that nobody else had found this. I was the first person to find this. And this is kind of interesting, actually, because it was, I had discovered the triptych, and I'm trying to think of the date. I think it was 2000 or 2001. Graham Hancock came to New York City to give a lecture. And I don't remember the book. I think it was Underworld. I'm not sure. But I waited until the end of the lecture, and there was a big long line, and I wanted to ask him. I wanted to say, I wanted to show him the triptych and ask him about it. And I waited. I was the last person online, and I went up to him and I showed him all the parallels that I've been gathering my whole life, because I've always been interested in this type of stuff. And at the very end, I said, I want to show you something that I found, and I showed him the triptych. And he looked at it, and his eyes widened. I showed him a lot of photos. And he goes, that is undocumented, and that is major, and you should write a book about that. And I'll never forget that, because he really was enthusiastic about it. And I know the difference. I know he really genuinely was sincerely enthusiastic. He wasn't just, because sometimes I get 10 emails a day from people, and I don't want to, shoot anybody down, but sometimes, people are a little bit off the deep end, and I don't want to hurt them, and I don't want to hurt their feelings. I'm just, keep researching. I say, keep going. It sounds like you're hovering around the target. I don't want to say.
You're almost halfway down.
But, but he was for real. He was genuinely and sincerely impressed. And that for me, and he had never heard, he had never heard of the triptych. And I said, you know what? I'm going to write a book about this, and we'll see where it goes, And that was written in stone, and that was, there was a lot of delays in publishing the book because of personal issues that I had gone through, but it eventually came out in 2011, and that was written in stone. And the whole idea behind that was all ancient cultures, bar none, okay, all the ancient cultures, especially the pyramid cultures, had built temples with the triptych, a three-door entry into their temple. The door in the middle is taller and wider than the outer two doors flanking it. And it's more important than the pyramids because these are temples. You know, when you think of temples, you think of places of worship or spiritual centers of you know, communing with the higher self. And that's what it was, you know. And not only that, but I found that these secret societies, and not just the Masons, but the Rosicrucians, you know, the Knights Templar, the Shriners, the Pythians, every single secret society that I'd come across had built the triptych into their headquarters, into their lodges, into their, you know, sclerafia. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And so the triptych is a major discovery. It's not a small little thing. No, it's major. It's the underpinning of the idea that in ancient times there was a universal religion shared worldwide among the pyramid cultures, and this universal religion has been handed down through history by these secret societies.
I keep thinking if we could resurrect Buckminster Fuller, he would have something to say about the geometry of it all for you.
That would be good.
Now, one thing that I've always got about is the relation to a lot of these secret societies, and where, you know, when it comes to Freemasons and Shriners, because, you know, Shriners are Freemasons at the same time. You know, the idea of the equilateral triangle of being a triptych in itself, and that was kind of one of the things that kind of blew my mind when I kind of figured this out, was if you look at an equilateral triangle and you put that over a triptych, you know, the triptych's the two doors, the smaller doors on the outside, you've got the taller door on the inside, and that equilateral triangle, or any triangle really, when you lay it on top, the larger door is that apex. So that kind of feeds into the same, you know, the same language as far as the geometry goes, and you know, in terms of the Trinity, used throughout a lot of these secret societies, and you know, through a lot of you know, faiths or belief systems, which I find very cool.
Yeah, that's it. You know, that's it. I'll never forget. You know, when I put that together, I said, you know, first of all, triptych, triangle, the same TRI prefix. And I know I'm the one that coined the word triptych, so it doesn't mean much, but it's three doors, the number three, the Masonic three. You know, one of the most important things Freemasons are taught when they become Freemasons is that the number three is the most important number in Freemasonry. We think of Mozart's Magic Flute, for example. It has the number three encoded into it throughout the entire symphony. And so, you know, I always wondered, what is this number three? It's the triptych. It's the triangle. The idea of the triangle, the two lower points of the triangle match up to the twin doors of opposites of the triptych, the outer twin doors, and the apex of the triangle lines up to the middle door of the triptych. And so it was easy for me to take it from there and say, okay, look, we have this design on the back of the dollar bill that was obviously created by Freemasons, and it's a pyramid, an unfinished pyramid, and the thing that finishes it is a triangle with an eye inside of it. And the eye is important because when you balance the opposites, the twin outer doors of the triptych, like the twin outer points of the triangle, symbolize the opposites, all of duality in the world. All of creation is said to be a duality, light and dark, sun and moon, good and evil, etc., etc. When you balance those twin opposites in your life, when you look at life not from one side toward the other, good against evil or right against wrong, when you realize that we as human beings are incorporating all of it, you know, we're both sides of the triangle. We live both in the day and the night. We are both good and evil, all of us, you know. When you recognize that, when you put the two sides together, you start looking at life from the apex of the triangle. You start looking at life from the middle door of the triptych. And this is what's called awakening the third eye, understanding that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And that's the power of the secret societies. And that's the power of all this, the ancient religions, the ancient worldwide religion, what I call. It was all the same everywhere, in Peru, the Inca cultures, in Egypt, in Mexico, in China, in India. They all had the same idea, which in essence was, we are spirits in the material world. And it's all of us. It's the same thing. We have, in a certain sense, we have fallen, but we've fallen into ourselves, and we're deities, we're eternal beings who have fallen into the lower self, and the lower self is an animal self. We all have we're all animals in essence. We have greed, we have avarice, we have gluttony, we have greed, all these types of lower emotions and feelings. And the idea here is when we master those, we remember who we are, that we are not these lower animal instincts and behaviors. We're the higher spiritual being that has temporarily fallen into the material world, and the idea is to master that. And that's what the triangle, awakening the third eye, the triptych, that's what it all teaches.
I think Richard would get a real kick out of maybe touching base with Kelvin Abraham we had on the show, who was talking about tetraionics, which is essentially a geometric waveform of the quantum field, which is he's all about the equilateral triangles, like you wouldn't believe. You'll have to check out Tetraionics by Kelvin Abraham.
I'll email you.
You might really enjoy that, Richard.
I'll email you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Like basically, he uses equilateral triangles to essentially model subatomic particles, and he can map out the entire. The entire
periodic table
with equilateral triangles, mapping out how the actual particles look based on this model. It's absolutely fantastic. We had him on for episode 6, and it blew my mind.
That sounds
very
good.
Interesting physics model.
Now, one of the interesting parts about the idea of the Trinity, and this is kind of a theory that I've postulated to a couple of brothers, is the idea of the Trinity being representative of creation, and how creation needs to have some type of intelligent force. You've got your chaos, you have which is one side of the which could be considered one side of the triptych. You've got your order, which is the other side of the triptych, and then you've got the intelligence or the God self, or the that supreme being, whether it's in ourselves, whether it's a higher power, what have you. And you need to be able to have that trinity to be able to take things from order to chaos, or from back again, or chaos being the rude matter, as it were, and the order being that final that perfect ashlar, that finished product. And that all ties into the idea of Trinity and the triptych. What do you think about that as being a possibility?
Yeah, that's it. In Taoism, for example, we look at the yin-yang symbol, what we call the yin-yang, okay? It's actually called the taijitu, but look at what we call the yin-yang, okay? There's a yin side, which is the female lunar side, and then there's the yang side, which is the male solar side. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that that's actually a trinity. Sorry if I said that too fast. Trinity, okay? The Chinese, the ancient Chinese, said that that's a trinity symbol. Now, we understand the duality, the two-ness of yin and yang, but what part of that design shows the unity of those opposites? And that part is, the answer is the circle, okay? The circle is the higher apex of the triangle. Mm-hmm. The circle is the part of that design that is what's called the Tao. It's the part that was never born and never dies. It's the eternal part. And it makes sense because a circle, by definition, it has no beginning and no end. It just continues on for eternity. So the circle is always a symbol of eternity. So when we look at the yin-yang symbol, we're exactly seeing really what it is who we are. It's a symbol of the soul. The circle itself is the soul. It has no beginning and no end. The duality is the potential within every soul to manifest duality. And that's what we're doing right now. We're manifesting duality. We're existing because of ourselves. There's no higher power. There's no external power outside the soul. We are the soul. We are the reason why we're incarnating here is because we've caused it to happen to ourselves with this idea of the yin yang. This is the yin yang symbol, the Taijitu symbol. Yin and yang is order and chaos and light and dark, and it all exists within us. And so that's an important teaching. You'll find this in Carl Jung. Carl Jung talks about this a lot, that we are the lords of creation. We are our own deities. We are deities. That's what we are. We're eternal, and we're omniscient, and we're omnipotent. And we caused ourselves to sort of fall into matter, because as Alan Watts talked about, Alan Watts is a great teacher, by the way. I highly recommend people. There's a lot of good lectures that he had that people are posting on YouTube. He died, I think, 30 years ago or 25 years ago. He's really up Joseph Campbell status, I think, and I put those two in the same category. As Alan Watts said, the whole idea of manifestation is not that we were caused to fall by some external being. We ourselves caused our own fall. We are omnipotent, omniscient beings that wanted to experience life, or what he called a dream, what the ancient Hindus as well called a dream. All life is a dream. It goes back and forth from yin and yang, and at the end we die. And at the end we just go right back to the Tao. This is what Taoism is all about. Taoism, we are the circle, no matter what.
He lectures a fair bit on Zen. There's some really nice chill step songs intermixed with Alan Watts' lectures, which are really nice to go to sleep to. And
I do that all the time.
He talks about this idea that God got bored, and that's why we have all these wonderful surprises.
I love that. Yeah.
If you were omnipotent, then you would get bored.
Yeah, exactly. At nighttime, I'm not ready to go to sleep. I just put on an Alan Watts lecture, and I'm good for 30 minutes. That's exactly what he talks about. He says, in essence, what would you do if you were God and you had eternity on your hands? What would you do? What would you do with eternity? And then he says, you would dream. He said, imagine if every night you could dream any dream that you wanted. In the beginning, of course, all of us would want to dream to be the king, right? To be this, to have everything we wanted, to have every pleasure, to have women, to have this, to have that. But after a few nights, we'd get bored of those types of dreams because we were in control of everything and we could have everything we want, and it would get boring after a while.
You'd ride the wheel of going through pleasure and pain.
Yeah, after a while. Yeah. Right. Yeah, after a while, we'll want to have dreams where we're not in control anymore, where we don't know what's going to happen. And he compares that to how we live our lives today. He says, is it possible that, we are deities having a dream and we've forgotten who we are? We forgot that we're the deity having the dream. We forgot that we're eternal, omniscient, omnipotent gods that are actually dreaming that we're human beings. Is it possible? And that's a beautiful idea, because I think that really resonates with me. It really resonates also with essentially every single ancient teaching that I've come across in all cultures. In every single culture I've come across, it really resonates. So that's a good tie-in there.
I try to pace myself with the Zen philosophy, not too much at once, because you find yourself in this space where you get sort of deep on the Zen side of things, and you go, well, I don't really want to produce, and I don't really want to consume anything. I'm happy to stare at the clouds.
I'm also just kind of sick and tired of these dreams where I just kind of fall and I can't, you wake up when you hit bottom. I get those a lot. It really freaks me out sometimes.
It's a weird gear shift between Zen consciousness and then the 9 to 5. I keep doing these shout outs towards there's a Robert Anton Wilson and Timothy Leary came up with that 8 circuits of consciousness model, saying if we could just, get human consciousness to shift gears properly, we'd be doing much better as a culture.
Every single time you bring something like that up, it's like shit, I need to read more. I need to find some time to actually get some of that.
That's far out stuff, though.
Well,
not everybody's digested that.
Well, far out, we've got, a guy in YouTube chat who keeps chanting that McKenna is God. So it's, there's not much more far out than that. But what about the God Self icon? I know that that's kind of a big theory, like the big focus of your new book with regards to the missing link, and it all links back to that we have a chapter within our history as a species that has been kind of wiped away, which is unfortunate because comets hit the Earth, volcanoes explode, the sun will excrete its own mass at us every now and again, like a giant
unwanted firework,
or huge astrophysicists fart. But at the same time, these things are going to affect us. Now, how did you get into...
That reminds me of the Alan Watts line when he's talking about predeterminism or something. He said, when Buddha drops fart, he does not say Buddha will drop fart at 3 o'clock. It's undetermined.
Now, bring us into the concept of the God Self icon and how this ties into what we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if a cataclysm hit the Earth tomorrow and all of civilization as we know it was wiped away for 1,000 years, and let's just say it was a conflagration of some type, and everything was burned, and most of the humanity died off, and it took about 1,000 years for culture to regain to where we are today, where it's a global culture, etc. Archaeologists of the future would dig up what we know as the crucifix all over the world. They would start digging and they would say, look, we found the crucifix here in North America. Look, there's the crucifix here in South America. And it's all over Europe, and we're digging this cross symbol with this guy on the cross everywhere. Is it possible that this was a religion that was once known around the world? And of course, the answer would be yes. Christianity is a worldwide religion that's practiced basically across the world. I mean, that's really what it is. So what I've found is that the same exact idea, except we're the ones who are digging it up, and what we're digging up is not the crucifix. We're digging up what I call the God Self icon. Mm-hmm. And we find it in every single ancient culture, essentially bar none. I don't want to say bar none for sure, because there could be a culture out there that I'm missing, but I've found the God Self icon, and that's a phrase I've coined, the God Self icon, in every single ancient culture. And, what it is, it's an anthropomorphic human being facing forward, usually facing forward. Sometimes he's facing the left or the right, but usually he's facing forward. Mm-hmm. His arms are outstretched to either side. He's holding twin symmetrical objects in either hand, and those objects are usually animals, not always, but sometimes they're staffs, like staves, but usually they're snakes. Sometimes they're lions, sometimes they're staffs, but they're always symmetrical, or essentially symmetrical. And what this means, and this is something that I talk about in The Missing Link, what it means is that according to esoteric anatomy, and this isn't me talking, this is really thousands and thousands of years of history talking. The Maya, the Egyptians, other ancient cultures all talked about this idea. They said that the human body, when you splice it right down the middle, if you could cut the human body down the center, where the nose is and the mouth, down through the chin, the throat, the chest, all the way down. The right side of the human body is the male solar side, the yang side. And the left side of the human body is the yin lunar side, the female side. And you could look up any Egyptologists talk about this, about the Egyptians. Mayanists talk about this, about the ancient Maya culture. And other, the Chinese, the Hindus, they all knew this. And the idea here is that the right side of the body and the left side of the body are the opposing sides, the opposites, the pairs of opposites, the sun and the moon, the light and the dark, the right and the left. Mm-hmm. And only when we understand that it requires an inner alchemy for us to actually put the twin sides of our being back together again, This is the third power as described in Freemasonry, the apex of the triangle, the middle door of the triptych. The idea that the number 3, the balance of the opposites, when we recognize that all of creation is a duality, and that in order to understand who we really are, we have to put those twin sides of the duality back together again. That's really when we start to see with the third eye, when we start to understand who we are. And so the God Self icon is, according to what my research, an ancient universal religion shared by all the pyramid cultures, all the cultures that built triptych temples. It's an anthropomorphic figure that shows that all of the ancients practiced the same religion and used the same icon, used the same God Self icon to show that they all practiced the same religion. So the God Self icon is the missing link that connects all the pyramid cultures together, shows that they all practice the same religion, and shows what that religion is. It's a balance of opposites to find the higher self. Balance the two outer parts of your being to find the soul within, the true higher self within. You're not the lower self. You're not the animal that you see in the mirror. You're not the human being that lives and dies in time. You are the spirit, the soul, the higher self that animates that being. And this follows in tune with Joseph Campbell, with Alan Watts, with a whole host of other 20th century philosophers, Alvin Boyd Kuhn, Gerald Massey. They all talked about this. This is no secret. All the occult authors, Aleister Crowley, John Dee, Dion Fortune, Helena Blavatsky, Manly Hall, Gurdjieff, they all talked about this. This is no secret. Okay. This is the wisdom of the ages, and the God Self icon is a discovery that shows this. And the God Self icon is a major part of Freemasonry. It's called the rebis. If you Google rebis, REBIS, you'll see it there. It's the rebis is holding, the arms are outstretched. There's actually a male and female head, and in the right hand is the compass, in the left hand is the square, and in both hands you could see that in the right hand the sun is next to the compass, and the left hand the moon is next to the square. But it's the same idea. It's the balance of opposites.
And how does that tie into the imagery that's been used in terms of the iconography? I know that I'm actually going to say this because I've always had the hardest time saying this. The Viracocha, or Viracochas in Peru and Bolivia. They're one of the largest, kind of one of the biggest known
$10 word, $20 pronunciation.
To a certain extent, yes, but I always forget the Viracocha. I remember Quetzalcoatl. I cannot remember Viracocha. That idea of the Viracocha and how it's, Viracocha being either plural or singular. He's holding the two staves, and I know that within Sumerian
the
culture.
caduceus or two separate staffs?
No, it's two separate staffs. It's like two snakes. He's holding two snakes.
Okay.
And there are some in, if I'm not mistaken, it could be either Sumerian or Indian, where it's either two monkeys, or it's two flowers, or it's two, it's two.
The world in
lions.
The world in balance.
Yeah, or the Mayans. Thank you very much.
I was just showing Chris a picture. It's called the continuum of virtue, which shows sort of like a pivot point between the opposite sides of cardinal virtues.
And if you don't have a password on your phone, I can actually see this. So you've got integrity, discernment, love, respect, humility, diligence, temperance, and courage. These are all the main virtues. The virtues
and vices on opposite sides of the column, and the individual walks down.
To the left, let's
say
for integrity,
and balance of all the virtues.
For integrity, for instance, you'd have corruption on the left and legalism on the right. For discernment, you'd have foolishness on the left and judgmentalism on the right. Or for love, you'd have selfishness on the left and enablement on the right. Are these the types of concepts that it's trying to communicate as a whole, beyond the more metaphysical sense?
You've got a very heavily loaded dualism.
Absolutely. Let's take, just to throw it out there, look at marijuana, for example. We all know, you smoke marijuana 10 times a day, 20 times a day for your entire life. It's no good. You're a pothead. It puts you in such a state of mind where you're missing out on life. I like what Alan Watts talked about, where he said, when you get the message, in terms of drugs, he said, when you get the message, hang up the phone. And because you got it, you don't need to continue with that. It doesn't mean you can't call back every now and then. It's good, having a balance. But don't ever not smoke it, because then you won't be exposed to that mind-altering experience that that might help you spiritually. So there's a moderation there. Don't smoke, 10 times a day for the rest of your life, but don't completely avoid it. Be in the middle. Look at what they say about drinking a glass of wine a day. They're not telling you to drink 10 glasses a day. They're saying, look, in moderation. Drink a glass of wine with dinner every day, glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine, and it's good for your health. I'm Italian. I have relatives that live past
we couldn't tell
100 years old. I have relatives that to this day are alive. They're past 100 years old. And I've been to Sicily, I've been to Italy, where they say, look, you know why I'm alive? Because of wine.
What is it, reverse erythritol or something?
Reverse erythritol?
There's some ingredient in the grapes that helps with long life.
That's the tannins,
right.
Man. It's all about the tannins. Now, I know that you've got some imagery that you wanted to be able to discuss as well, and I didn't want to get too far in, knowing that you're in Madrid, which is 5 hours ahead. And let's bring some of those up and to make sure that your lovely work and research can actually be seen by our fantastic team at home while we're having this discussion, if that's okay.
Yeah, but you want me to share my screen and show you some of the images?
Yeah, share your screen. We'll bring it on.
Yep, let's do it.
And man, I gotta say, shout out to Kevin, and who's giving a shout out to you. Kevin DGAF420 says, "Good show so far, Den of Lore and Mr. Cassaro," and cool. You've gotten Mr. Cassaro, so that's definitely definitely a good.
It's a good start.
It's a good start. Now, Alex here.
That's cool.
Now, you're coming from an Italian family in New York, and I know that Alex here is coming from somewhat of an Italian family. I come from a Croatian family, and we've got quite the European connection / Freemason connection going on here. It's like this triptych of awesome. You being the center, the center triptych, or the center doorway of knowledge, and us being the two co-hosts, the lesser beings, as it were, in this stead. It fits in. It fits in.
I'm the god.
There you go. So I'm going to bring up
the duality, man.
For the next hour, at least.
So I'm going to bring the screen share here in, and I know that
beautiful book covers, by the way.
Cool, thank you. So just very quickly, here are the 2 books, Written in Stone and The Missing Link. Written in Stone, I focus on the triptych, the 3-in-1 doorway. There's a lot more in that book. It's not just about the triptych, but I've gotten incredible feedback from people. I mean, just people have written me. People write me every single week for the past 5 years, telling me that the book changed their life, and that's just changed my life. To hear that, to for people to tell me that is just incredible. And in the latest book on the right here, The Missing Link, that's basically chapter, I think, 9 in Written in Stone is devoted to this God self icon, where we have the two hands outstretched and holding symmetrical objects. So what I did with The Missing Link is I just fleshed out that chapter in Written in Stone. And so that's what The Missing Link is about. I go into basically every major ancient culture: China, India, the Aztecs, the Maya, the cultures of Peru, and I show how they all created icons, the God self icon, where they show the deity or the hero in the middle, and the twin objects on either side, and I explain what it means. And so that's The Missing Link. So Written in Stone and The Missing Link are my the 2 books here. Just going very quickly. My website is richardcassaro.com.
It's in the show notes, everybody. So if you want to check out the website after we're done the show, please do. Richard has tons of research and articles on there. I get lost every single time I go on his website. So it's just in terms of just like lost in what I'm reading. It's like I go into this zone. It's fantastic.
Cool. Thanks, man. All right, so then let's see, Old and New World parallels. This is stuff that I've had online for many, many years. I had a website called deepertruth.com ever since 2000, and I posted this information on that website. So this is just a quick run through. On the left here, you could see the New World, which is obviously the North and South America. And on the right here, we have the Old World, which is Europe, Asia, Africa. And so for many years, I've been presenting these parallels between the two hemispheres, the New World and the Old World. And so this first parallel is pyramids. We have corbel vault arches. This is Maya in Mexico here on the left. And on the right, we have, I think this is Egypt. I'm not sure which pyramid this is in. I think it's in...
That could be the Great Pyramid of Khufu that looks like the Grand Gallery.
It looks like the Grand Gallery, but this isn't the Grand Gallery. This, I think, is the same exact, corbel vault arch, but it's not. I think it's the pyramid, the bent pyramid. And so, it's the same exact design. As we keep going here, there's mummification. This is in Peru. This is in Egypt on the right. So these parallels are incredible. And this is, as I was saying before, elongated skulls. We have on the left here in Peru, the New World, elongated skulls. In the right, the elongated skulls of Egypt.
Now, Denver Michaels, who's a longtime contributor to the show, he's also done a lot of research in terms of he's in the YouTube chat with us, and he's always with us every chat. And thank you very much, Denver, for joining us. He's actually mentioned that the construction could be a possible connection to the Tayos Caves in Ecuador, or very, very similar to it. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of them, and it's a possibility that I could be off in terms of the where he's adding that in. But have you heard of them?
I haven't heard of them, but if I see photos, I may have seen them before.
Denver, if you're listening to the sound of my voice, email me those, please, or Facebook them, or
we'll see if we can connect those dots here.
We'll see if we can
on air or off air.
But cool. please do continue.
Yeah, so here we have the same idea of the death mask, golden death masks, and as we know in alchemy, the concept of gold is the alchemical gold is the idea of reaching that state of transcendence, what the Hindus called moksha, or release from the world of samsara, the world of duality, the world of which they didn't consider real. If everything goes back and forth from yin and yang all the time, they didn't consider that real. What they considered real was the Tao, the circle that encompasses the yin and yang. That's the apex of the triangle. That's the middle door of the triptych. So the idea here of the gold death mask is the idea that the deceased had known throughout their entire life, or had recognized by the time of their death, that life was just a dream, or life was in some way not really real. The spirit beneath the life was real, and that's where they had gone to when they died. They had returned to the spirit.
You have to get off the merry-go-round of reincarnation.
Yeah, maybe. That's it. And so here we have another example of new world, old world parallels. Is this type of architecture is called cyclopean architecture. That's actually an outdated term. It's now called polygonal architecture, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle.
Or polygonal for all your Canadian listeners.
Yeah, that's it. It reads polygonal, but I believe it's pronounced polygonal.
We Canadians are weird. We pronounce our Z's as Z's, and that's stuff like that.
I could be wrong about that. An archaeologist corrected me one time, and that's why I always He could have been wrong. Who knows? But anyway, a lot of people these days are talking about, these are machine made. These were made by the ancients, had access to machines, and that's why. But
I'm refraining
that
from making a comment about polygamous stoneworkers, but sorry, please go on.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Maybe that's only funny in my head, but
no, it's funny. No, but as somebody who understands the esoteric tradition of Freemasonry, think of the concept of Freemasonry for 1 second. Look, we're talking about master masons, and look at what we're looking at here. We're looking at master masons' work on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. These stones were cut and placed by definition, master masons. And so a lot of these modern researchers that talk about, the ancients had access to machines like sawzalls and drills, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Really what it was these master masons had access to higher spiritual technology, the higher idea, the third eye really is what it is. That's the all-seeing eye in masonry, the eye in the triangle that we've been talking about. I'll show you countless images of the triptych with the third eye above it, and the third eye is not a new age concept, or it's not a some type of a wacky idea. It's based in Hinduism. The dot on the forehead of the Buddha is the third eye. This whole concept of the third eye is very ancient and very rooted in religion, in Taoism and Hinduism and Buddhism and all the Eastern traditions. You'll find it, and you'll find it in the Western traditions as well, but on an esoteric level. So, and the Masons use the so-called all-seeing eye. It's not the eye of God. It has nothing to do with God. There's no such thing as an external God, a biblical God. The whole idea is you are the God, and you recognize that when you awaken your third eye. And one of the ways to awaken the third eye is by doing heavy lifting, by doing work, by putting your body to work. It could be by cutting and shaping stones. It could be by dancing. Dancing is a way to awaken the third eye. Meditation is a way to awaken the third eye.
Put those principles in action. I know there's some people trying to play with melting stones with high frequency sound waves and some interesting stuff right now. But
yeah, the idea is we have the power within us, and all these stones teach us about that power. Plato, if you read Plato talked about the idea that writing itself, a system of writing, whether it's hieroglyphics or just letters in general, is a downfall. Man had fallen when they invented writing because we no longer used our memories. And that's an idea that I could never grasp really until recently. The idea that writing as a technology was a bad thing, not a good thing. It wasn't something that made our culture better. Writing is something that made our culture worse, because before that we didn't need to write. We had the mind the mind was able to remember everything and didn't need to write it down. And that's anybody can Google that and find that and look at that, and I think it's important to look at these ruins and remember that, the idea that we didn't need machines to do this. Human beings didn't need machines to do this. We could do this on our own because we were spiritually more advanced than we are today. And that's something that you'll find in all the authors, all the occult authors and esoteric authors. Sorry.
Now, David Roll once said, we interviewed David Roll. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He's an Egyptologist. He did the research behind Patterns of Evidence, Exodus, which kind of like redated a lot of the Old Kingdom, New Kingdom, and beyond. His take on it is that if you've got like some guys, like we as a people nowadays, we're used to instantaneous communication. If you want like a pizza pocket, it takes like a minute and a half to heat up. We don't understand what it is to be able to sit there and carve something over the space of our entire lives.
What was I carving again?
okay, we're not trying to fit pizza pockets into a wall here. It's not the analogy. I'm just trying to make the analogy behind.
Well, I mean, I think you're right. If someone had a hieroglyphic language or a symbolic language, and they're going to sit there and carve it out on rock, they've got to keep that image like burnt into their mind. So their sense of memory, by virtue of it, memory being like a muscle, would be stronger than ours.
Well, I was gonna
potentially.
Well, I was gonna comment on the shape of the stones and how that it's a possibility that somebody could have, if they're planning something out. We're talking about, if you're a master mason, you've spent your entire life learning how to do something and perfect something. And there is the possibility that there is the high technology aspect of this type of work. Some people will say, let's rock liquefaction, and they just kind of fit it together. They warmed it up, and they just, formed this weird.
It's better than
shape.
A lot of theories.
Well, I understand that. There was also the possibility that these people actually knew what they were doing, and somebody could have spent 20, 30 years making one fucking rock to fit into that wall perfectly.
Monuments require a painful amount of foresight
and dedication. Well, that's a possibility. And the thing is, we don't know for sure. We're here in the 21st century, 2017. This is work that could be 5, 7, 10,000 years old. How do we know that somebody didn't spend 70 years shaping that rock to an absolute perfection? How do we know? Just saying that. It could be 10,000 years old, but at the same time, how do we know that somebody didn't spend 50 years or 40 years or 30 years making that one rock?
Could be the ancient Mexicans trying to keep the North Americans out.
Pharaoh, Trumpius, trying to keep those Phoenicians out of the
throwback to the ancient burial mounds being the original housing bubble.
Oh God!
It happened before. We haven't learned our lesson. Damn economists.
Richard, we did warn you.
I like that. That was good, though. That was good.
So, but yes, the I know we got a little bit far off on there, but still, the Cyclopean walls. It's a possibility that somebody could have spent 50, 60 years making that, just one rock.
Yeah, it is. It is a possibility. I don't believe that though. We all know when you focus on something and when you devote your life to it, you can bang it out quickly. Like somebody, it's hard for me to think of an example right now, just off the top of my head.
Well,
but
Alex has that effect on
there was no text messaging and no television. You just filed your rock. Everybody in the village gets one rock.
Right.
You
focused on the task at hand, and you were a master at it.
Exactly.
So I would guess that it probably took them less than a day, or maybe a day or two, just to to put these things. These were masters. That's what they call them, master masons.
If people are throwing arrows at you, you're going to get really good at building walls really quickly.
Very quickly, right?
And, I can understand why it can be hard to formulate a response or any type of idea with Alex here. Well, his nickname for the longest time was Big Sexy Alex. And he hates that nickname, but I always used to call it at the beginning of every single show. So, the idea being that he always brings the, funny, interesting, intelligent conversation to the entire thing.
When I can,
when he can. But at the same time, the wall itself, yes. If you're being invaded by, let's say, the Sea Peoples, individuals from, let's say, Kush, wherever that actually was, whether it was south of Egypt or not. Any tribes that were on the western deserts or the eastern deserts or from the Sinai, the idea of building walls for temples, especially if you're in an area like Cairo, which is very highly seismically active, being able to make something properly is kind of prerequisite.
Maybe there were more earthquakes back in those days, and that's why they had to do it that way. I was going to ask, did you find the triptych archetype in ancient India?
Yes.
And I'm sure that...
Do they have interesting walls?
Absolutely.
Or should we jump on to the next slide?
We probably go to the next slide.
Yeah, they have Cyclopean walls, and they have megalithic walls as well in India. Absolutely. Yep. All right, I'll jump to the next slide. Here's Malta on the right and Sacsayhuaman on the left.
Criminy. Excuse my language. And I'm the one who swears in this show, and that's actually quite impressive. Now,
Yeah.
for Sicily, that was around the time of, and I know that the Minoans were considered one of the ancient cultures, and people say like, oh, Minoans were 3500 BC or 3500 BC or earlier, but this is around like this type of construction. If you look at them both left to right, from the New World to the Old World, very, very similar in terms of how it fits. But I know that at the time this construction was actually done was at the time that the Mediterranean was actually a valley. It was not filled with water. You know, like how you've got like ruts for carts that go out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, Alex, you're looking at me like I'm crazy here. This exists. Trust me.
Okay. I'm just trying to picture it in my head. I'm picturing the Mediterranean basins drained of all their water. It's a lot of water. It's a big ocean.
It's actually a sea.
There's a lot of buried stuff off the coast all over the world.
I'm sorry, Richard.
That's not far-fetched at all.
Sorry. Go.
You know what it is?
Continue,
we call this cyclopean masonry, and one of the things that I plan on studying for the next few years, one of the reasons I actually moved from the United States to Europe, is because I'm very interested in what's called the Cyclopean cities, the Cyclopean ruins that are found in Europe. And the reason I'm interested in it is because I believe very firmly, I've seen these places, I've been to them, not just now, actually many years ago I first saw them, but now I came back to see them again and study them in earnest. I really truly believe that these so-called Cyclopean cities, Cyclopean ruins, were built by stone masons, master masons, who were more advanced in many ways than we are today. And I don't want to give away a lot of the information that I've found because I'm creating like mini documentaries. I'm writing a book about it. And so I don't want to give too much away. But I've really found smoking gun evidence that the builders of the Cyclopean ruins were much more advanced than modern man, than us today. And just to give you an idea, the word Cyclopean, the Cyclopean eye, the Masonic eye, the all-seeing eye, was once called the Cyclopean eye. If you read Adolf Hitler talked about the Cyclopean eye many times. And what he described it as was, and this isn't to say, this is just to, use a historical reference. He described it as a higher wisdom eye, the mind's eye. Plato talked about it as the mind's eye, the spiritual eye, the all-seeing eye, the sixth sense eye. The ruins of the Cyclopean ruins show an advanced humanity. And I see that in the ruins in Greece, in Italy, in Spain. There are Cyclopean ruins across Europe, and they were not built by normal human beings. They were built by human beings who had what I believe was an awakened third eye. And the Cyclops of history are a mythological memory of this third eye race, of this third eye group of humanity that built these ruins. And so my task for the next couple of years, I see it being to show how these master masons of the Cyclopean ruins had this awakening, had this higher sense of being, and built these monuments because they were more advanced. They were, in essence, Christs. They were Buddhas. They were self-realized beings, and they didn't live 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. They lived probably 4, 5, 6, 7, even 8,000 years ago. And I talk about, like the Hindus talk about the Golden Age, the Satya Yuga, which they say is around 10,500 BC. I believe these ruins speak to that. These ruins come from a time when man was more advanced. All the ancient cultures talk about a more advanced form of man many thousands of years in the past, a golden age that fell into a silver age, that fell into a bronze age, and now we're living in the iron age, the lowest of all, the Kali Yuga age, where people are greedy and where civilization is in essence falling apart. And so I resonate with that. I see that. I see the ancient ruins as being from a golden age, and I see the fall of man. I don't see our modern technology as being anything great. I see it as being a mask that that is covering over the fact that we're living in a dark age. I think this is a very dark age that we're living in, and I think I think most people feel that and see that. It's just they don't understand that it's part of the ancient teaching. The Hindus, the Greeks, the Romans, the Aztecs, they all talked about it. They said that life is a cycle. The ages are like a cycle, a circle. And there was once a golden age in the remote past. It fell into the silver, that soon fell into the bronze, and now we're at the bottom of the cycle, the Iron Age, the Kali Yuga age, and there has to be some type of an ending to that before we can begin to ascend back into the higher ages. And I see this ancient architecture, the Cyclopean architecture, the megalithic architecture. The more ancient, the more advanced. Why? Because there was a golden age back then, and humans were more advanced, and we've fallen from that point. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
I would say no. Back when men were men and rocks were not heavy.
Well, to a certain extent, like, okay, I'm going to be the counterpoint on this, because yes, like, if you're looking at in terms of more advanced spiritually, in terms of more advanced,
that part I agree with.
Okay,
I'm just teasing.
Yeah. Damn it, Alex! Stop being an intelligent troll.
Alex is a big.
Yes, he is. Again, big sexy Alex for a reason. When we start, if he starts unzipping his shirt, then we know we're in trouble.
Back when men were virtuous.
Cut this part out for the family cast. Now, the interesting part that I find when it comes to more of the advanced, like being advanced, it's a term that can be thrown around a lot. I know that if you're talking about technologically advanced, we've got planes that fly across the planet. We've got the ability to do instantaneous transmission / you're in Madrid, I'm previewing your screen on one screen, I'm streaming this out to the, hundreds and thousands of viewers that we have on this show, over YouTube. That's pretty damned advanced. But when it comes to being able to work with the base elements of the earth, which is stone, which is the what this world is actually made of. Or the
forces of gravity themselves.
Or the forces of gravity themselves. I know that you're quite the, Alex, you're quite the proponent of Coral Castle. Now, to be able to kind of rewind a little bit, when you speak about people who have opened their third eye with regards to working with stone, and I'm going to touch on the ancient alien theory here just for a second.
We play a lot more with electricity than we do with magnetism.
Forks in electric sockets sometimes. Just don't do that in Europe. 240 voltage will kill you. The idea of elongated skulls, and you've had a few that you've shown on screen, and I know that researchers like Brian Forrester have shown the elongated skulls quite a lot. And if you talk about pharaohs such as like Akhenaten, who have the elongated skull, is this a possibility that not speaking from the ancient alien side that they are aliens, but as, let's say, a uncharted sixth or seventh race of humanity that has not been necessarily acknowledged?
Yeah, I think the jury is still out. Yeah, I hear you. I hear your question.
Is a possibility that elongated skull has the increased brain capacity, if it did exist, it allowed for that increased opening of that third eye?
Yeah, I think it's possible. But there's so much more that we need to really look at, and there's so many more. We need more data. We need more information, and I think that the jury is still out on that. I like where you're going with the question. I'm interested in the question, but I don't have the answer. I think it's a possibility.
I think we need more skatefish oil and monatomic gold.
But
it's just a throwback to an old episode. But.
One thing I would say, though, that's interesting, look at Peru, for example, where we find a lot of the elongated skulls. What a lot of people aren't talking about is the trepanation, the whole idea of brain surgery back in ancient times. And we know that people lived after after their skulls were cut open because the bone grew back, you know. So skull surgery, trepanation, is very ancient in Peru. And I don't think that was evidence of any type of higher machines that they had. I think it was evidence that there was a higher humanity, that people instinctively had more power, spiritually had more power. I know what you're talking about, where you say, well, we can all communicate right now because we have these wires that, we connect and we can. I think when we talk about a golden age of humanity in the remote past, I think that we're talking to more of a sixth sense type of humanity, more of a telepathic, more of.
I would think it's more of a. I mean, it's like a different kind of memetics. So we've got patterns, ideas essentially transmitting across cultures, be it triptych, or the modern equivalent would be. The terminology would be something like a mimetic transfer.
The modern equivalent would be, Alex, what color of Speedo am I imagining you in right now?
That you're concerning me.
No, the mimetics is kind of an important part. Where
mimetics is viral ideas.
Well, you're talking about the ability to be able to transmit thought or at least feeling or emotion. It couldn't necessarily have been the way that we communicate as individuals in terms of language, but in terms of concept, in terms of imagery, it's a very big possibility.
It's an idea that propagates itself almost without human intervention.
Well, it's like those monkeys that could be on different islands, but if you teach one set of monkeys how to crack open coconuts in a certain way, all of a sudden the monkeys on the other island are going to do it the exact same way. That's that same type of concept.
That's right.
I think they did experiments with some tuning forks in a vacuum, and they get similar. If they're tuned to the same frequency, you can apparently make them resonate when you hit one, even though it's so far away from the other. There's weird quantum mechanics going on in the universe. We know that for sure.
Right.
So,
just how do I build a rock wall with my third eye consciousness?
You look at it very, 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 very,
do
very,
I have to
very,
see
very,
through time when I look at the rocks? Or?
Wait, sir, for you take your shirt off and the rock will form itself. But back then, they really had to work with it.
Moving on to the next slide.
Moving on to the next slide.
Let's see what we have here. Hieroglyphics.
yes.
Here's the fall. Here begins the fall, according to Plato, I'll tell you. When men no longer needed to use the art of memory. This is a fall. A lot of people look at this and say, look, there's a parallel ancient higher civilization. I agree with that as well, but I would also point to the idea of Plato, where writing was a fall. It was the beginning of technology, where we needed to write things down. So this was the beginning of the fall. And the idea that they used hieroglyphics on both sides of the Atlantic is interesting, but it also shows me that this idea that across the world there was a fall of time. There was a fall from the golden age down to the silver age, let's say, and I see it right here, but in these hieroglyphics across the Atlantic Ocean. These are the Maya, by the way, on the left, the New World, and these are the Old World Egyptians. So this idea here, this next photo is good. I like this. Steep stairways. Nobody really talks about this. This is something I've found. I haven't read any books. I would quote scholars if I found a scholarly quote worth quoting, but nobody's really understood that in the New World here on the left, this is the Pyramid of El Castillo in Chichen Itza, Mexico. And on the right, I'm not sure. I think this is Angkor Wat. They had steep stairways that today we need ropes to help us up and down. And I know that we're not allowed to climb El Castillo anymore. But this is interesting. And this speaks to the idea that ancient peoples had a kind of balance. And that's an important word, balance. They were centered in a spiritual way that we've lost today. There are very few people that can actually walk straight up this pyramid without using this rope. And if you make a wrong step, you'll fall and die, basically.
Hell, I'm tired just looking at it.
both sides. It's not just the one side. So this idea of the steep stairways is important. It speaks to the idea that that ancient peoples had a kind of balance that we lack today, really, in essence.
The ancient stairmaster. Got to keep the body healthy, you know.
Well, Wayne in YouTube chat had a very interesting thought that questions are the first step. And you can follow that with any stairway.
Well said.
But very, very good, kind of add to that. But like the Terraced Mountains, I know that you've got New World and Old World there. One interesting thing that I did want to be able to put in there is, and this may be way off base, but Nan Madol, Alex? Richard, you're quite familiar with Nan Madol, are you?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Now, one of the theories that's out there with regards to Nan Madol is during the time when the water levels were a lot lower, and obviously you've got Sunderland, and I'm going to use the the Graham Hancock style of saying Sunderland for that, but because I'm sorry, he says it the best. Anyway, the idea was that Nan Madol was kind of like a weather station, like a psychokinetic weather station that protected all the rice fields in Sunderland from the major hurricanes and cyclones that could come out of the Pacific Ocean towards that peninsula at the time. I don't know if there's any veracity to it. It's just kind of something interesting I'm throwing out there. But the fact that you've got basalt, multi-ton basalt constructions that are in the middle of the Pacific somewhere, and no explanation of how they got there. Just that's the thing that reminded me of exactly what we're seeing right now. But please do continue.
Yeah, that's Nan Madol is just a very mysterious place, and it's just incredible the size of the stones, the way they put it together. It's enigmatic, it's bizarre, it's advanced, and that's, I think, further evidence of the idea that people thousands of years ago, 4, 5, 6, 7,000 years ago, were different than we are today, and in very powerful ways, in very meaningful ways, in very psychological, spiritually, they were different than we are today. And I think that's what Nan Madol teaches us. But these are terraced mountains. It's a parallel idea here that cut into the mountains and grow your crops. And a lot of these mountains also have irrigation systems in Peru and in the old world. It's an interesting parallel. It adds to the group of parallels. And it shows us that in ancient times there was a connection among the old and new world cultures. This is what the essence of the idea of an Atlantis or a higher civilization, a mother culture in the past, speaks to. And this is an interesting parallel as well. The idea of the tongue sticking out in both the new world and in the old world. This is, I think, Greece on the right in the old world. And in the New World, this is the Aztec calendar stone. The idea of the tongue sticking out. And I don't want to go into it too deeply, but in essence, what it is, if you know the Aztec calendar stone, this is actually the very center point of the Aztec calendar stone. And the center point of a circle it's the circumpunct. It's the source. So the tongue sticking out teaches us that we're the source of creation. As I was saying before, we're the omnipotent, omniscient God creating our own selves, our own bodily yin and yang. And that concept was parallel on both sides of the Atlantic, in the old world and the new world. That we are the lords of ourselves. We are the God. We are the. Don't look to an external power for worship or for anything. You are the God, and that's what these God self icons, these tongue sticking out icons, talk about. These days, these keystone cuts, I used to call them interlocking stones, but these days this is very well known. The idea that to put two stones together, you would have these interlocking
wedges
shapes. Right? Yeah, wedges that you would fill with stones or with metal or any type of any type of something that would lock them in together. This is something that's more common these days, but I've been putting this out for a long, long time. This information, you find it in the New World and the Old World, in Peru and Mexico and all over the Old World as well. Let's see here. Protruding stone masonry, another concept that's much more popular these days. Here we have images on the New World side in Peru. I believe this is from the pyramid of, Khufu Khafre Mankara. This is from the pyramid of Mankara and on the Giza Plateau. Precision stone cuts on both sides of the Atlantic. You could barely get a piece of paper through them or a razor blade. This is interesting. Shakana cross. A lot of people don't realize what this is. On the left-hand side, we have the idea that Shakana is very popular among the Inca and pre-Inca cultures of Peru. And in the right-hand side, it's all over really Asia. The Chacana cross is all over Asia. People just don't realize it. What the Chacana cross is an example. If you could see here on the left, it's more visible. It's a cruciform shape. The idea of the number 4 is important. 4. What does 4 tell us? It's north, south, west, and east. It's summer, winter, spring, and fall. It's the whole idea of earth, air, water, fire. We live in the material world, and the material world is made of the number 4. And we see that in every single, like I just talked about, these examples of earth, air, water, fire, north, south, east, west, and summer, winter, spring, fall. So we're the center of these manifestations. We are the ones causing the manifestations. So the idea of the Chacana cross is that when we find our center of balance, when we balance these opposing forces, we remember who we are. We remember that we are the God at the center of these manifestations, I guess you could say. And if you think about it, it's really a duality. Summer and winter are the duality. Spring and fall are really just the intermediate points between summer and winter, just as the dawn and the dusk are the intermediate points between the day and the night. So the number 4 is really a duality. It's really the number 2, not in disguise, but in elaborate form. Reed boats, both sides of the Atlantic, Peru, Africa. The idea of the maze, again, now, here we have finding the center.
Before we move on, one interesting thing about, if you can just go back to the reed boats, the reed boat that particular tribe uses is actually equal, if not similar to, the Egyptian style of constructing boats. And like the boats that they
exactly
make,
parallel.
Like those boats are ocean worthy. But they're small. Well, not that particular one, but if they make it large enough, it's actually ocean worthy.
Right, which Thor Heyerdahl, remember in the 1970s, I could be wrong, but Thor Heyerdahl crossed the Atlantic in a major sized boat like that, and he proved that they were ocean worthy.
Which is fantastic. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So this is an interesting one. The idea here being that the circle with a dot at the center is the circumpunct, and you see that on both sides of the Atlantic here as well. The circle with the dot in the center, and what it is, it's a maze, and it's kind of speaks to the idea that in order to transcend the lower self, which is, when we're born, we identify with the lower self. That's who we are. We look in the mirror and we see the lower self. And everything about our culture teaches us that we are the lower self. We are what we look like. We are what we dress like. We are what we, think like. And what these images teach us, the maze image in general, the labyrinth in general, is to look toward the center, because the center point is the non-material spiritual point. It's the point of, it's the access. It's the point of eternity, whereas the rest of this is more of the duality point. The circle talks about spinning around in the field of time. It's an eternal spinning, so it symbolizes eternity as well, but it represents the field of time, the north, the west, the south, the east. Think of a clock, where this could look, you could see a clock here, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. But only when you see things from that center point, from that eternal, non-moving center area,
the eye of the storm.
Like the eye of the storm, where everything is still and there's no movement anymore, where there's peace, where there's quiet, where there's identification with the true eternal part of you. That's what these labyrinths are teaching, in essence. And you find, what's interesting as Masons, what we find most interesting is that a lot of the cathedrals in Europe have labyrinths on the floors, where people can actually walk around, and little by little you get toward the center. The center is the key, the end goal of the whole. The whole thing is the whole purpose of the labyrinth is to find the center, and that's the center really between opposites. So that's what these parallel labyrinths are teaching. There's the Atlantean figures, and this is not something I found. This is something that's been known at least more than 100 years now. The whole reason why they call them Atlantean figures is because the Victorian scholars believed that the parallel of this idea of the human being holding up something with the elbows sticking out like this, that you can see here in Mexico on the left and in Greece on the right. The whole idea, the reason why they're called Atlantean figures is because archaeologists believe that they came from the same source, which they called Atlantis. And so I always found that interesting, and I always found that funny. It's only really in the past 60 to 70 years that scholars have outlawed and prohibited the word Atlantis from being used in academia. And it's a shame, really. I mean, they've really just they've really cut down a really fantastic idea, and I think one of the main thrusts of my work is to show that there really was a mother culture in the remote past, and all these parallels speak to that. And we really, we're doing ourselves a great disservice by outlawing and prohibiting the word Atlantis, because I think that word it's an ancient word. Plato talked about it 600 years before Christ. It's a good word, and not just Plato. Lots of scholars, lots of the philosophers, the Greek philosophers, the Roman philosophers, Crantor, Strabor, Posidonius, Zodicus, Proclus. There were many ancient philosophers who talked about Atlantis. It's not just Plato, and not even just the Greek philosophers or the Roman philosophers. Throughout history, people have talked about Atlantis. Who the hell are we to all of a sudden in the last 60 years say, Atlantis didn't exist? No, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't buy that at all. That bothers me a lot. I trust that our forefathers, that our ancestors, for thousands of years talked about Atlantis. I believe them a lot more than I believe these last 30, 40, 50-year scholars who have, I think, in my opinion, they have an agenda. And I don't believe them at all. And I'm not going to follow them. And I don't care if I'm if I'm taboo, or if they think that I'm what they call a pseudo scholar. It doesn't bother me at all. I found really good stuff. The triptych, the God Self icon. Go ahead, try to refute that.
We should make a meme where don't trust anyone who hasn't built a monolith.
Right. That's it. So here's the another interesting parallel. On the left, this is in Peru. It's what's called the zampon. I always get this word wrong. Zampoña in the left, and it's basically Pan's flute, And, yeah, it could have been invented independently, but, there's a strong possibility that it also came from a common source. It's very similar on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Parallel sacred
those
Gorgon symbols.
Traveling bards.
Right. The disembodied single eye symbol is common on both sides of the Atlantic. The hand with the eye symbol, it's a magical symbol. It has to do with the idea of creating magic in the world. It also speaks to the third eye. On the left here, this is actually from North America, the rattlesnake disc.
Have you ever found any symbology of like the Egyptian scarab anywhere else in the world? Because if it was a transfer of culture, you think that would come across somewhere too, because it's so prevalent in Egypt.
I probably, off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but if I did some research, I'm pretty confident I could find a connection with the beetle among different cultures. But this connection is a good one, because if you think about it, look at on the left-hand side, the rattlesnake disc, twin serpents. These are twins, because as you can see, the tongue is sticking out. It has that same tongue shape. They're more or less in balance, and then the third eye is awakened. I mean, in Hinduism, you have the concept of the Ida and Pingala channels need to be balanced in order to awaken the Sushumna in the middle and awaken the third eye.
What was the inflection on the tongue sticking out for those symbols?
The tongue sticking out, the way I see it, it doesn't necessarily have a meaning in and of itself. It could even be, if you look here, I mean, it could even be like a spitting cobra.
Like a wild deity or something? Like,
it doesn't, honestly, I haven't really thought too much about it. What I see is in this symbol, a symmetry. And symmetry to me means duality. Whenever you see a symmetry of left and right, what you're really looking at is a duality. A lot of people today call it spin, a lot of the younger generations, and it's a good word too. But what it is, it's duality. It's a parallel. The left and the right are being symmetrically balanced. And in order to awaken the third eye, in order to remember who you are, in order to put the two sides together, the day and the night together, the left and the right together, the light and the dark together, in order to remember who you are, you need to do that. You need to balance those opposites, and that's what we're seeing here.
Okay.
We're seeing a balance of opposites.
Now, just a quick question here, just be able to take a step back, just because I had to take care of some business, as it were, for like the last 2 minutes. The old world was from where? Where was that hand actually first seen?
This is an Arab hand. The old world, when we say, before Columbus discovered America, everything that we know of is the old world. When Columbus discovered, and a lot of people are, well, Columbus didn't discover America. Well, I'm talking about just mainstream, what the mainstream. When Columbus discovered North America, Mesoamerica, and South America, that's the new world.
Okay, but I meant more towards, okay, if that's that's Arab, so that's probably around the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Mesopotamia, Babylon, and the New World. I'm guessing for that would have been shown in from the artwork. I'm guessing Mayan.
You see the eye and the hand a lot in Turkey too, don't you?
Yeah, there's a lot of those eyes in Turkey. This on the left-hand side, that's actually the rattlesnake disc. It's from North America, believe it or not, the mound-building cultures, which makes
Ohio
it even
Valley.
more fascinating.
Ohio,
yeah, well,
Ohio Valley,
more
up
or
down
less,
to like
Mississippian culture,
Yeah.
Mississippian culture, yeah.
Okay. If for anybody who's listening who's actually a researcher, if those two things don't blow your mind as far as being a possibility, and I've had Ross Hamilton on the show. Back at episode 9, it was probably one of the more eye-opening episodes we've had in terms of the symbolism and the cosmology in terms of how like the alignments worked with the star mounds, the serpent mounds. These things are absolutely connected. There's no doubt about it. Whether there's any doubt, it's the exact same thing. The exact same thing. Like, how can anybody dispute the fact that these two things are the exact same concept? I'm looking at you, Alex. No? Okay, nothing. So they're the exact same concept. I 100% agree.
There's obviously
100%
renditions and variations,
but still, the concept is the same. It's the same. Like if it's a branding concept. If I as an advertiser want to be able to make sure that somebody knows that I have designed or developed or am part of or am behind something, I'm going to put my brand behind it. I'm going to put my logo on it. If that logo is prevalent from now, like look at Coca-Cola, horrible company the way they treat some cultures in South America at this point in terms of producing the actual product, but still, the Coca-Cola logo has essentially been the same for the last 120 years. Think of it that way. So that hand symbol, even though it is slightly different, is still the exact same concept that's being communicated.
I mean, you could say God as if, what's the word there?
As a concept?
Would be mimetic in terms of representations of God. Those would be very mimetic and transfer across cultures like you wouldn't believe.
Okay. So, sorry, I was...
maybe as like a modern take on the connection.
So, Richard, I was adding some very heartfelt support towards the validity of your research with that one.
We were chatting about consciousness a touch as you were coming back in there, and I was going to mention to Richard, if obviously you've probably seen the symbology in the Kabbalistic system. So when you look at the notion of the Godhead in the Kabbalistic system, as you come down the two sides of the tree of life, you've got the fool on one side and the magician on the other side, as sort of the balance of opposites. The fool is coming down from the Godhead, being essentially ignorant and funny, and then the magician being the exact opposite, usually holding two scepters or two staffs, and he's the person, the perfected being that's descended and reascended through the process of mysticism and magic. So mysticism is receiving knowledge down from the Godhead, and magic is going back up the tree towards the Godhead.
So in this
conceptually,
conceptually speaking, I'd be the fool, you'd be the magician, and Richard would be the knowledge.
Maybe, and then the Godhead, they do a notion with like Ein Sof and Ein Sof Or, which is nothingness, everythingness, and limitless light.
There we go.
As like a Venn diagram.
Sorry for the
from my understanding.
No, he did good, Alex. You pointed out something really important, man. Because you know what? The tree of life in the Kabbalah, what it is really is a triptych, because there's
three pillars.
Right. There's the two pillars on the outside. One is traditionally called the pillar of balance. The pillar of mercy I think on the left hand side. The pillar of severity on the right hand side as you look at it. And then the middle pillar is called the pillar of balance, the pillar of consciousness. And as we know, the consciousness is the spiritual part, the soul. And so it's a triptych, number one, and number two, it's a balance of the opposites to find the center. And so I think you tagged it right there. You did a wonderful job.
Next slide.
Sorry.
Next slide.
I'll go to the next.
Oh, don't apologize. We're the one holding you up with all of this wonderful discourse.
No, good. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, here's the third eye in Peru on the left. This is the Nazca culture in Peru. On the right hand side, this is a mosaic from Sicily, an ancient mosaic from Sicily, showing that essentially the same concept as the Hindus show when they put a dot on the forehead. The Buddhists, the Taoists, the dot on the forehead is the awakened third eye. We talked about cyclopean architecture earlier. This is he is a cyclopean being. He is a cyclops. He has an awakened third eye on the forehead, and so this is an ancient evidence, I guess you could say, of that concept. And this is more evidence. On the left, this is from Mexico. I actually created written in stone. I show how the Mesoamerican cultures, the Maya, the Aztec, the Olmec, the Toltec, also used the third eye on the forehead, and this is something I've never read anybody or any scholar talk about.
Do the Toltecs ever use the serpent coming out of the third eye like the Egyptians do?
Yeah, they did, and I have photos of it. Not tremendously convincing. I mean, there's photos of serpents on the forehead, but not exactly like the Egyptians do. but there's evidence of it. But in my opinion, this dot, not just this photo, I have an actual article on my website, richardcassaro.com, where I show the many Aztec, Olmec, Toltec depictions of the third eye dot, this dot right on the forehead. And really what it is, it's the chakra, it's the third eye chakra. And we have that as well in the old world, not just among cultures that we traditionally associate the third eye with, but also with Arab cultures, Turks, Iranians. There's a lot of cultures in the old world that use the third eye forehead dot. It's just something that we in the West are not familiar with because it's not part of our tradition. What it is part of is the secret societies. The whole concept of the third eye is the basis. The all-seeing eye is the basis of secret societies. The Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, the Shriners. That's it. Boom. There's no, the eye symbol that we see among secret societies is the third eye symbol. And I've been talking about this for many years. I know a lot of people have latched onto it in the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years. That's good, but in my work, I really show a connection. I don't just talk about it.
Well,
I show it.
There's sort of a literary connection, like implying that there could be some sort of psychic powers with the third eye, or the symbolic notion of the third eye, that it's conceptualizing something for people that are looking at it in terms of consciousness.
Right.
Or is there something deeper, like a real materialistic mystery to the notion of the awakened third eye that's realizable, or is it just stop at the symbolic consciousness level? I think a lot of people are curious about that distinction in particular.
Right. The third eye, first of all, the main concept is where the two physical eyes see outward at material things, the awakened third eye looks inward at the spiritual soul. The third eye, when awakened, makes you understand that you are an eternal being, that you are a deity, that you are not the physical body, that you are much more than that you existed before your body was born, and that you will exist after your body dies. That's in my opinion, that's the essence of the third eye teaching. The idea is that you are much more than the physical body. That's the basis of it. Now, according to Eastern tradition, really what it is, there's healing powers associated with the third eye. There's sixth sense powers associated with the third eye, like clairvoyance, for example. The idea that you know what's going to happen before it happens. It puts you in touch with the different so-called parts of the...
it's like a protruding forebrain.
That's not a bad way to put it, actually. I don't want to put too much into it because there's entire studies that were written long before I existed about the third eye that people can look up and talk and research. So I don't want to put too much of my own spin on it. But what I would say is to really research the idea of the third eye in terms of the Hindu scholars and the Buddhist scholars and the Taoist scholars. There's where the wisdom lies. Don't listen to me.
I keep thinking like the neurologist should be able to examine I don't know if there was any kind of brain tissue left over in those mummies, but if people of ancient times really had some sort of different memory, like the phrenological structure of their skulls would be very, very different. We see those like conical heads and the notion of third eyes maybe being sort of like a forebrain type of consciousness, and some they talk about having a tri-brain. There's different parts of the brains that are doing the different pieces of consciousness.
Of course, I've wrten this very fantastic.
In the last show, one of the last shows we talked about.
Nobody can actually see that.
8 circuits of consciousness, and that you can be competing with your. What are you showing me?
Well, clairvoyance as far as what color of Speedo you're wearing.
Well,
sorry, continue.
We're trying to plumb the depths of human consciousness here. Where was I going with that? Help me out here.
The third eye, in terms of
I was rambling on.
Well,
Okay, moving on.
I'm sorry. Like the third eye is supposed to be a matter of not only it's a matter of clairvoyance. It's also a matter of being able to see past a certain dimension. It's being able to perceive things beyond what we are able to perceive as human beings in the here and now, color, spatial relations. It's a matter of, okay, well, is
non-spatial deduction.
Well, is it time? Is it a matter of matter? Like, can I perceive things how they're going to be? How they are currently within the current realm, outside of my current perception? Whether it's a matter of extra-dimensional beings, whether it's a matter of external knowledge. Those types of perceptions.
They sound like far out notions until you sort of internalize the idea that your consciousness right now is an amorphous blob of chemical soup and electromagnetism in a amorphous cavity in your head flying through space.
Exactly. So again, the Speedo is supposed to be a representation of that in terms of just very simplistic fashions. Just
simplicity is absurdly a profundity.
Many hands make short work.
Getting back to Richard here. Next slide, please. Stay on course. Stay on target. Stay on target.
All right, what do you guys think of this?
I'm thinking that they're the exact same thing, just one's a different design. Like okay, the yin yang on the old world is like 1960s. The yin yang on the left is like
they've got better drugs. I'm sorry.
Damn it, Alex. Sorry, but this duality symbol, please do go into it.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's they're actually better. This is on the left. It's from the Maya culture, the Mesoamerican. They're actually better symbols than this, and I don't feel like taking it up right now, but there's actually an exact replica of the yin yang here, the Taijitu in I don't remember which city it was. I think it was I don't remember, but there's an exact replica of the yin yang. But this is another symbol that's very similar.
That before. That's
oh yeah, you never seen this? It's pretty popular now. It's pretty popular. I put this together about 15 years ago, so a lot of these may seem redundant to a lot of people who are already familiar with these old and new world parallels, but
now,
yeah, this is
what about the concept of the yin yang being also very simplistic, or the Kaijitu, if I'm pronouncing that properly, being the representation of the labyrinth, but more along a simplistic labyrinth of the soul.
Well, really, that's what it is. They're circular symbols because the soul is a circle with no beginning and no end. It's eternal. And we think of it like you're a deity. When you're a deity, when you're a god, you're the circle part. And when you want to manifest into matter and become a human being, you fall from the circle, from the outer rim down into the middle part, which is the duality part. And so we're living right now in the duality part, but we should never lose sight of the fact that we are the eternal part at the same time. These are images, these circular images that also show duality are images of the spiritual part of us, the part that, and the dual part and the material part. We are spiritual and material at the same time. That's the key here. Nobody pushed us to fall, and we've fallen, and now we need somebody else's help. That's not what it's about. That's not what any of these ancient teachings talk about. What they really talk about is the fact that you are an eternal being, and you have caused your own fall. And that's what these images show, that you are the circular, eternal, non-material being, which is the circle, but you're also the duality part.
I think in the symbology you go through very basic dichotomies of light and dark, and if you were to teach a child spirituality, you can be that extreme and polar in terms of expression. And then as you move up higher and higher and you get more and more complex understandings of the universe, if you look at the symbol on the left, it's sort of like higher frequency, there's more angles, there's more shapes, there's more going on, but it's still a higher expression of duality perhaps than the other yin-yang symbol. It's like a mature or an adult perception of the complexity of the duality of the universe versus a more simple lower frequency perception of the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And on the left, you can also see the Chicana cross that we saw earlier in the ancient Andean cultures. This is in Mexico here on the left, but you can also see the same the Chicana, which is again, focusing on the center as the source.
Like principles amidst simplicity and principles amidst complexity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did want to be able to add just quickly is that I've got a text message from a fairly reliable source, and I won't say who, that they're bound for somewhere very cold, and they know that we've been talking about some very metaphysical stuff here with regards to the God self and somewhat of a more metaphysical state in terms of the God self and how to be able to perceive the world a little differently. So I'm just going to say, sir, have yourself a wonderful time out there, just giving a shout out, and picks or didn't happen. That's all I'm going to say. So just wanted to be able to add that quickly.
Okay, let's get back on track. I keep interrupting Richard here.
No problem. All right, let's see what we got here. Dual lions. On the left, we're in Mexico. On the right, we're in Egypt. On the left, you can actually see a triptych in the background. The door in the middle is wider and than the two outer doors flanking it. And as you notice here, the lions' heads are matching up with the twin outer doors. This is an interesting idea, and the lions are joined. They're the duality. It's actually a 3-in-1 symbol. This is a 3-in-1 symbol, and this is a 3-in-1 symbol. The two lions are joined together, and the joining is the center door. The idea that they're joined together is the center, the balance point. And here on the right in Egypt, this is what's called the Aker lions symbol. And one of the lions is called yesterday, and the other lion is called tomorrow. And the idea of the sun disk being centered between them shows the balance point of between the opposites. It's a triptych as well. This is the center door of the triptych. This is the left. This is the right, and that's the same concept here. Now, Schwaller de Lubeck talked about this Aker lion's hieroglyph, saying that it really was an emblem of the eternal now, in that when we are in the center, we are neither looking toward the past nor looking toward the future. We are in the now moment. And that's really all that we have, as Alan Watts talked about. The only real thing that we have is now. There's no such there's no such thing as the past. And there's no such thing as the future. The only thing that truly exists, the only really thing that's real is the now part. And that's really, in essence, I think, a beautiful way to describe the triptych, which is the idea that the only thing that's real is not the changing duality of the left and the right, not the changing yin and yangs of life, the things that go back and forth, but the part that's here and now. This is the center. This is the balance point of the opposites.
On a practical level, when I look at the image that's on the left there, I remember when I was down visiting a temple in Mexico, I can't seem to recall which one it was, but it was on the coast. And they said, well, with that temple had the 3 windows or doors that were in it, and they used that as a means for approaching the temple or the city or the settlement. So they would have candles in the 3 windows, and only when you lined up and you were sort of going straight at it would you see all 3 lights, and then you knew you were on the right path to go towards that settlement if you were on a boat coming into town. And they said, well, for that Mexican temple, they actually, on the shoreline, a shoreline away from the temple, there was actually huge amounts of coral, and if you didn't follow directly straight at the middle light, then you would be shipwrecked.
That's interesting.
And so I could find out which temple it was and link something to you, but that's what they were saying when they were going through the history of battles and things that had been won in and around that settlement.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. That sounds good. Let's look at, guys, can you give me about a minute? Because I have a 9-year-old. I'm actually watching him tonight, my son, and he's calling me right now.
Sure. Yeah, we can
You know,
fill in for a minute.
we'll take some calls from the audience while you're gone. So,
All right.
if you are on the show right now, again, add us at Den of Lore, or you can dial 1-347-789-7977. And I'm just going to bring this webcam back up. There we are in full screen.
Exciting. Do we have anything going on in chat right now?
My sister showed up.
Well, that's exciting.
I'm sorry, this beef jerky is fantastic. I love this beef
The
jerky.
candies are also fantastic.
I know, but they stick
So
my
I'm
teeth a lot
addicted
more.
to sour candy. I don't know why. Are you ready to build a triptych?
I thought we were going to build a...
Just give me a drywall knife, and I'll cut 3 holes in your
If you
wall
cut-
back here.
So you have to deal with Meg if that. If you want to try that shit, deal with her. She'll come home like, what the fuck? That's going to be her reaction when we've got 3 doorways.
But babe, it's a triptych.
And she won't give a fuck.
What do you mean it's a triptych?
Okay, so
Look at these good old-fashioned walls here.
ladies
No
and
holes in
gentlemen, add us to Den of Lore, or you can dial, if you're in the U.S., 1-347-789-7977. We're going to take some calls right now for the next couple minutes. If anybody is listening, you can touch with us.
You know
get in
how
touch
they
with us,
built
ask some questions.
Polymorphous, polyamorous rocks.
You know what?
Please let us know.
You know, if you dial, add us at Den of Lore or 1-347-789-7977, we will be able to update you on John Anthony West. And I know that Clay seems to have dropped from the call so far, so I'm just going to add him back on here. If one of the cool things I'm taking from today is that Richard has a fantastic sense of humor. I did warn him when he came on to the show that this is different from any other show he's been on, just because we are a wild and crazy bunch. But still, like, how are you taking?
We're not even that deep in the sauce tonight.
Well, I'm not. Well, you are. You're not. I'm celebrating St. Patrick's Day. This is also rye, not Scotch.
Do you have any green food coloring downstairs? You have to turn that around.
No, I don't actually.
We're not sponsored by.
Not sponsored by anybody.
particular-
We're trying to be. If there's any Scotch producers out there that would like to sponsor the show, we will not actually have commercials, but we will drink your product on air. How about that?
I have a few ideas for that actually.
Well, that'd be fantastic because if there's any sponsorship of this program, it's kind of an issue.
There's a vape company that might be interested.
Your vape company?
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that after.
We'll talk about that afterwards. At the same
Nothing
time,
official yet.
well, it comes down to integrity. How can we prove to our listeners that we are not being influenced by any individual? And I actually have a call.
We're
My
influenced by
One
all kinds
second
of
here.
individuals.
One second here. Caller, you're on the air. This is Chris George Zuger of the Den of Lore.
Hi, Chris. This is Katrinka in Kansas City. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. If you hear my dogs barking, I'm sorry. I think that somebody is coming home. But anyhow, I'm really curious to know if you have any updates on how John Anthony West is getting along.
Okay, well, John Anthony West is, from the last time that we heard from Clay at the beginning of the show, is that the cancer seems to have been stopped, halted. So it's not in remission at the moment, but it has ceased to be spreading, and he is also dealing with
That is wonderful news.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully we can get some more details, or maybe we could even get the cancer center on air for a little while to talk about whatever they're doing for treatment and let that out for the public to know.
Well, I know that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I'm so incredibly thankful to everyone there for hosting. I feel like a lot of people around the world have had a chance to listen to the fundraisers you guys did, and it's bringing a lot of like minds together. And I hope that positivity is proving positive to help him out in his fight. So.
Well, your support and your dedication to the show and to John Anthony West is one of the reasons why we do this show, because at the end of the day, we're all after the same thing, which is the truth. And
Amen.
For shows like this cannot exist without listeners like yourselves, and without John Anthony West's work would not exist if people did not rationally believe that he is speaking some modem of truth. And he's also, the type of person who doesn't deal with any bullshit. We don't deal with any type of bullshit.
He's dug in deep on something we're all
yeah.
very curious about. We appreciate the dedication that he's given to all of us through his work.
So I know that Clay wants to come back on the show later on this evening, and we'll be able to get a update from him directly. I know that he's out in the Catskills Mountains, out at John Anthony West's place, and the cell phone signal is bad, the internet signal is bad. So I will get him back on here before we bring Denver Michaels back on the show, and we'll get an update from him to be able to update those who joined the show late on John Anthony West's
if we could just
progress.
Mobilize all these curious folks
in addition.
Right.
in the right direction.
Absolutely.
we'd,
Who wants to go to Cahokia with me, speaking of that? I live really close. I'm very curious.
Well, we live in, like, Canada.
We're open to the notion of expeditions. If you want to connect and chat over after the show, we can.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah. Awesome.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks, guys, and keep it up. And God bless John Anthony West and the Quackademics, too.
You know what? Fuck the Quackademics. And we're a YouTube show. We can talk as we want. And I've got explicit on iTunes, so they know we swear. But that's like the one swear word that I've said all show, so we'll go with that.
Yep, that's true.
Thank you for calling
Have a
in.
good night, boys.
You too, Katrina. Thank you very much. Bye. All right, let's bring Hello, Richard. Are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, fantastic. Sorry, we just took a listener call to cover for you while you were out dealing with your family stuff. So I do apologize if there was any dead air there, but still.
Shall we? Are you good to get back? Jump on the next slide, Richard, or where did you want to go?
Yeah, let me see if I can get it back on screen.
So you can grab the split screen up there again, Chris.
Going here to screen share mode.
How's that? You see that?
I see a triptych doorway and your beautiful face on the left-hand side.
Okay, so you're not seeing the screen share.
Not at the moment, no.
All right. Let me see. How's that?
It's getting. Oh, yeah, there.
Perfect.
We go. That's perfect.
Okay, essentially this is just the idea of animal-headed humans on both sides of the Atlantic.
We've got horse and Quetzalcoatl or something here, or what are we looking
left
at?
and right. Yep, that's it. Yep, left and right. The birds, whenever you're looking at birds in mythology or symbology, you're looking at a creature that is able to transcend, rise above the material world. Birds with wings, the flight, the idea of flying is always the idea of rising above materiality. The material, it's a spiritual concept. Birds are always spiritual.
Enoble Blavatsky and the theosophical stuff, they say, well, the material world is spirit at its lowest cyclical vibration. As a field, as a conceptual field.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so that's what these designs speak to. The cruciform is popular all over the ancient world. On the left here, we see a Mayan cross. On the right, it's the Ankh cross. And the idea is the cross of matter. It's the cross of the material world. The idea here is being, again, it's always the same theme, transcending the material and reaching the spiritual. And that's really what was worth writing about for the ancients. It was worth designing for the ancient artists. And that's what we see here on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Phallic symbols on the left and the right. Phallic symbol being not a sexual, not necessarily like we think of as a pornographic or a sexual symbol. It didn't have that connotation. To the ancients, for them it was a symbol of power, a symbol of fertility, which ultimately is a spiritual concept.
You can evoke and provoke the goddess.
In essence, yeah. In essence, it was, an idea that it's hard for us to grasp because we're so when we see these types of symbols we kind of giggle and we think of pornography, and it was something completely different for them.
Yeah, exactly. It's the standard, like if you're in high school, like, oh, somebody drew a penis. Like,
well, Western culture doesn't talk about the notion of the goddess as much as some other cultures.
The thing. Like for here in the Western society, it's made pornographic, but at the end of the day, it's about the delivery of information towards a female that then completes to create a god self.
Yeah, well, we had the other gentleman on who was talking about sacred temples and their connection with fertility. Obviously, if you have the basic foundations of an agricultural society, fertility and seeds and germination and everything, procreation, it's the key to all life when you're struggling to survive.
That's exactly right.
If you don't get your harvest, well, nobody's going to come and save you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but
similar hand postures. On the left is where are we here? Are we in Tiwanaku? I don't remember. I think we're in Pumapunku or Tiwanaku. On the right, we're in Turkey, I believe. Could be wrong about that. Been a while since I've accessed this archive. On the left, sun worship, Aztec calendar stone. On the right, sun worship, Egyptians. It's not really sun worship, as we're worshiping something external to ourselves. The idea here is the inner sun, the sun within us, the spiritual part within us. That's what both of these symbols speak of. Remember, they're both circular symbols. Think of it, here's another interesting idea. On the left, the Aztec calendar stone is a circle with a dot in the center, and the dot is actually a human face. This is the higher self face with the tongue sticking out. On the right, the sun symbol, in Egyptian hieroglyphics, the sun symbol is written with a circle with a dot in the middle as well. So you see a parallel here across the Atlantic Ocean with the idea that the sun is designed or drawn as a circle with a dot in the middle. And that's something that we see on both sides here, and that's an interesting parallel. Triptych temples, the Mayans here on the left, the Egyptians here on the right. We've talked about that a lot tonight. Another example of triptych temples, Maya here, Chichen Itza. This is the Temple of the Jaguars on the left, and then this is actually in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. This is a triptych temple, and the sun symbol is crowning the center door of the triptych.
I remember in the first Magical Egypt that at one point they were talking about, I think it was Schwaller, and that they had found this seed stone, or this conceptual seed stone that was planted in the heart of a lot of temples. And those pillars are sort of like the temples will build up organically and larger from the inside out, like a plant would grow. And those pillars being sort of a symbol of fertility and growth of the temple, but it's growth of stone, sort of.
But here's the interesting part, and I'm going to be able to add in this.
Sure.
Richard, if you look at the top of that stone, and you think about the top of the two pillars of Freemasonry, and again, I'm not going to mention those two pillars on air because the brethren who I go to lodge with will kill me if I do. Well, metaphorically speaking, like they'll just be like, "Dude, you couldn't say the name on air," but still, it's the same. The two pillars. One has the sun as a representation, one is the moon, or one has the cosmos as a representation. The top of those pillars is very similar to the top of the pillars in the triptych in Egypt.
Absolutely. I don't know why you can't say Jacob and Boaz. I mean, it's all over the internet, and it has been for a long, long time. So, I mean, that's exactly right,
No,
so
true enough. I'm taking the same.
The winged circle here. Can we talk about that symbology a little bit?
Yeah, that's the soul. That's the spiritual. That's the higher self. That's the most, as far as I'm concerned, and I've really been dealing with symbols for my whole life. I'm talking about 35 years. I would probably say that symbol, the Aten, is what it's called, the sun disk in Egypt. That's probably the most powerful symbol in the world, because what it really is, it's a symbol of the soul. It's a symbol of the higher self. It's exactly like the yin yang. Let me see if I have another picture here. No. It's a symbol of the yin yang. Here's a good picture.
Mm-hmm.
Really what it is, it's the yin yang symbol. Okay? It's a circle, and it has twin serpents. Now, as I talk about in my book, Written in Stone, Upper and Lower Egypt. Egypt is comprised of an upper side and a lower side. Upper Egypt is where the Nile starts, where it's where the rain falls and the Nile starts in Upper Egypt. It begins to flow into Lower Egypt before it reaches the Mediterranean Sea. Upper Egypt is elevated. It's the highlands, and that's why the Nile flows downward into Lower Egypt, into the Mediterranean Sea. And the kings, Egypt was once divided into two lands, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. And the kings of Upper Egypt wore the white crown, and the kings of Lower Egypt wore what's called the red crown. And it wasn't until King Narmer, also known as King Menes, King Narmer, I think around 3200 BC, he united the two kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt. And that's what we have, what we call the dynasties. That was the first dynasty up until, that's what we call dynastic Egypt. All the pharaohs, everything that we know of in Egyptian history was caused by this unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. Now, in many of these images of the sun disk, of the Aten, we have the Upper Egyptian serpent here wearing the white crown, and the Lower Egyptian serpent wearing the red crown. And that's an exact perfect representation of yin and yang. That's exactly what it is. It's the yang crown and the yin crown. And I show this in my book, and I show this in my Facebook posts and my videos, talk about it in my lectures. So really what it is, it's the circle is the soul, and Upper and Lower Egypt, the yin and yang, are the duality that the soul experiences when it falls into a body, when it incarnates into a body. And that's it. There's really no greater, explanation. That's a perfect explanation. It's common in Egypt and China, okay, because I just talked about the Aten and the yin yang. Those are Egyptian and Chinese symbols. But there are other symbols all across the world that speak to this same doctrine. And I talk about those as well. But, I mean, these two are perfect because the yin-yang, if you think about the yin-yang, it's also twin serpents. Some people call them whales. Some people call them fish. I call them serpents because it really shows a connection to the Upper and Lower Egyptian serpents here. And so I think that's a very powerful connection that is just completely lost on most people, and it's sad. But I think getting back to what you were saying, these are absolutely in Masonry known as the Jachin and Boaz pillars, and this symbol in the middle is the serpent with is the Aten with the twin serpents. It's the duality. It's manifesting the duality.
The framed pillars give you the inversion of the triptych, whether you see two pillars or you see three openings.
Right.
With your
that's it.
Perception.
Yeah. That's exactly it. The twin doors of duality. The two outer doors represent duality, and the middle door is the source, the sun. The sun in the sky is the source. That's who we are. That's the spiritual source.
Now, moving on to the next slide, because I'm like stuck to my seat at this point. Oh shit! There we go.
This is an old slide. I put this together. I've had this on my website for 15 years. It's in essence, it's just when I was very young. I'm talking about when I was 15 years old. I was into this, and so I started collecting photographs. Step pyramids in the New World and the Old World. In the middle here, we see corbel vault architecture in the Old World and the New World. Mummification in the old world and the new world. And so from a very early age, I started putting this together, and I started showing it, and I had a journal. I used to keep a journal about this stuff. I was really, I'm hardcore about this. I've always been. And when I put together my deepertruth.com website, which is still active, by the way, in 2000, I started posting these images. All the images that you see right now are from literally 17 years ago when I started putting this together. A lot of people share my stuff on Facebook, which is why I put these watermarks. I hate the watermarks. I despise them, but I think it's just I need to do it because otherwise people just share my work without really. They just put the photo, and they don't put my name, and I think that's unfair. I've really done a lot of work, and spent a lot of time.
Disclosure TV will steal your shit and just post it on their site, oh, we found this interview from from some people who talked about Atlantis. And they'll get 20,000 or 30,000 hits with their 5 commercials per fucking video. And it's somebody else's podcast or somebody else's work. I found Grimerica shit on there. I found, I know you've been on, what was it, Capricorn Radio. You've been on there a couple of times. They've taken their shit. It's that type of stuff pisses me off because it's you guys are just getting hits and getting commercial hits for somebody else's work. Somebody else did the interview, and you guys are making money off of it, and they're fucking posting it for free. Alex, that pisses me off just a little bit.
Yeah, it's really despicable.
You only get as much justice as you can afford in the legal system that we have.
Oh, Google's merciless with that shit. Oh, I post if anybody does that, I could post a Google. If somebody says if somebody steals a capture frame of anything from this and claims it as their own, and I know it's Richard's. Oh, you're damn well sure I'm going to tell Richard that this person stole your shit, and I put a Google copyright claim on it, and we're going to let you know what goes on because we got to protect each other. We're all truth seekers out here. We can't let this shit go on.
Yeah, I hear you.
Getting back down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
Now, you know what it is? Here's part of it, and this is interesting. Really what it is people are selling their souls to the devil. And we all watched those cartoons many years ago when we were kids, right? You would sell your soul to the devil just for some momentary fame or fortune, okay? Now, we always thought that would, who would sell their soul to the devil? Nobody would because, we are all smarter than that because we don't want to, have a lifetime of fame and fortune and an eternity of suffering and hellfire and all. Really what that is it's a metaphor. And these people who are stealing work like this, like stealing my work or stealing somebody's YouTube videos or whatever it would be, they're exactly selling their souls to the devil. They're trying to make some quick money. They're stealing really it's really the worst form of stealing. When you steal somebody's hard-earned work or research, you're stealing.
Call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
Can you guys hear me?
Sorry about that.
You guys there?
All right, cool. We're here. Clay is just.
Call in, or?
Well, no, Clay, he's been listening in because he has very bad internet out there. So it's just just call me in, man. I'll listen over my cell phone. So I'm thinking his internet just cut out, or his cell phone signal just completely cut out. So he's been feeding in on one part of it.
All right. So what I was saying was, in essence, what it is, it's that these guys are they're selling their souls.
There's a distinction between theft and piracy is copying something, and theft is literally taking it away from someplace.
But it goes deeper than that. No, listen, Alex, it goes much deeper. Look, these people they're trying to gain money based on somebody else's research or based on somebody else's hard-earned work. And when you do that, you're selling your soul to the devil. You're looking for short-term fame or money or whatever it is, and you're not concerned about the long-term cost. And I'll tell you, karmically, in a sense of karma, which I really believe in, and which a lot of people believe in, you're really damaging yourself because in the long term you're going to get hurt badly because you've hurt other people by doing what you're doing. Is it worth the $50 that you make from stealing somebody's video? Is it worth, I put my copyright, I put my logo, I put my watermark on stuff. There's actually people that have the balls to cross out my watermark. Why would they do that? Why would you deny somebody who spent their life researching this stuff? Why wouldn't you mention his name? What kind of a person are you? You're not a good person, or maybe you're just sleeping. I don't know what the idea is, but I've seen not just one person, a lot of people. They cross out the watermark so that they don't have to show richardcassaro.com. It doesn't hurt me. It hurts them. And I know that. And a lot of people don't believe me when I say it, but I put the watermark on there to protect them, not to protect me. Because, when you do something like that, you really sell your soul to the devil, not in a precise sense, but in a metaphorical sense. You're really doing something very bad energetically to your own self, and you're hurting other people, but more importantly, you're hurting yourself.
In one of the interviews that Chris was actually doing where he was focusing on me, I was talking about a point in my life when we ran into this notion of sort of the good and the dark side of money and the moralistic dilemmas of leveraging other people's time, leveraging other people's experiences.
That was a Christmas special. We
talked about it a few times.
Well, I was quite drunk
it's
for the Christmas special.
I always think it's a notion that needs more airtime for human beings to talk to each other along those grounds. But
so if you're listening to the show, don't be a dick. Give credit. SEC, come on.
And I had sort of summarized saying that's why I like this notion of leveraging nature itself. So all businesses are price arbitrage systems of spread. All banking systems are percentage arbitrage systems of spread. The only other real game that human beings are playing on this planet is leveraging nature itself. Well, that's farming, that's moving megalithic blocks, that's building hydroelectric dams, things of that nature.
But at the same time,
versus eating at each other's work or leveraging each other's time.
But at the same time, people like Richard who have been doing their research for 20, 30 years, and Richard's a researcher, he's an author. It would be the same as like somebody trying to scan his book and put it up in a PDF for free. For us, like, we do the show for free. We're value for value when it comes
I'm
to
sort
the
of
show.
saying someone's usurping all of us.
Oh, true to a certain extent.
On a philosophical basis here,
but at the same time, like, this show is made towards trying to get people as many eyes on the research as possible. For people like Richard, who have put years into it, or are trying to get this word out there. It's how can somebody learn about this information as quickly and as efficiently as possible? Obviously, we have many, many, many avenues of getting that information out there.
It's good that the work is spreading, and we wish you all the credit in the world for your original insights.
So at the end of the day, don't steal Richard's shit. Our show, we're a little bit more iffy on it.
Moving on. Next slide, please.
No, I like what you said, Alex. I totally resonate with that. That's good stuff. All right, so I think we're coming toward the end here because I can't click anymore. So yeah, that was it for that one.
Now
here's a good.
Sorry, go.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, so here's now like drilling down, as they say. Here are specifically from Peru on the left side, the Inca or pre-Inca cultures of Peru on the left, and the Egyptians on the right side. And here you could just see in this one photo, you see the trapezoid doorway that was built by the stonemasons of the Andes, and the trapezoid doorway that was built by the stonemasons in Egypt. And not only that, but you have the gold death mask of the ancient Andean cultures and the gold death mask of the pharaohs. And not only that, but you have the jewelry that shows a duality with the twin faces, part of one piece of jewelry. This is a nose piece. That you see this dragon appearing. It looks like a dragon face going both sides. Here the Horus face is going both sides. And here's something that most people don't realize, but on the forehead, on the right-hand side, the Egyptian, it's a serpent, and on the left-hand side, it's an owl. If you could see here, there's an owl on the forehead. And this is, and these are important parallels, considering that these were ancient cultures that supposedly were unrelated. They're separated by the Atlantic Ocean. You can clearly see that they weren't directly in contact. I don't think they were directly in contact either. A lot of people say they were. I don't think so. I think that what we're seeing here are children of the same mother culture. They inherited this wisdom of the gold and the forehead animal and the duality of the necklace and the nose piece here and the trapezoid door of the stonemasons. I think that they inherited this from a higher culture, from a golden age culture that existed in the remote past. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, and that's what this little folder is all about. It's about the parallels between the pre-Inca and Inca cultures of Peru on the left side and the Egyptians on the right side. And here's the pyramids. This is a parallel. And the mummies is a parallel. Mummies with crossed arms is a parallel. And I've seen this is actually my photograph. I took this photo here in Peru, in the capital of Lima. There's a museum. There's many pictures of mummies with crossed arms like this in Peru. And I'm very surprised that more researchers aren't talking about those crossed arm mummies. The gold death mask, the idea of an anthropomorphic coffin in the human form being similar on both sides, pre-Inca and the Egyptian. The stonework is very similar, not only with the stonework, but the protruding little points here that we see that nobody understands, and what do they mean and what are they about. I've been talking about this for 17 years. I haven't seen anybody come up with any kind of insight as to what they mean, myself included. I have no idea.
Looking at some, probably not the case, but I know from looking at some old walls built around when I was visiting Italy, you would look at these giant walls and they would have these notch-out holes in the walls, very small ones. And I couldn't figure out what they were. And then someone said, well, that's how they used to build them. When they were stacking the stones up, they would take these long, like 6x6 wooden posts, and they would insert them into holes in the wall, and they would build their scaffolding into the wall as they built the wall up. And then when they were done building the wall, they would remove the scaffolding posts. So you'd see these wood posts sometimes still sticking perpendicular out from the walls. When I see those nodules poking out of the rocks, obviously that's something different, but I don't know, that's the closest thing that my mind can draw up in terms of why something like that might exist.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. It's not, it's not a bad explanation. I just don't believe it. I see it being something related to, and this is my best guess.
Those blocks are way bigger. They're polygonal, and it's obviously something different, but
totally different.
Where can your mind go with it? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. For me, I just see it being, I've seen interesting silhouettes. I guess when the sun reaches a certain point in apex or zenith, and it hits these little outcroppings, and it forms an interesting image. And I've never really been able to study those images day after day after day for months at a time. But I always felt like if I had that opportunity, I could probably show that it had something to do with the way the sun is hitting those protruding points, and in some way it has something to do with that. I'm not exactly sure what, but that's my best guess. But anyway, moving along, I think that's the last. Is that the last? Let's see. No, there's more. Okay, so pre-Inca, the megalithic, just the idea of sheer, massive stones. Cut to perfection. On the left, we have on the left. Actually, the left is the Osirian on the right.
The Osirian,
in Egypt.
My mistake.
Yeah, on the left it's Machu Picchu. It's the Temple of the Three Windows. Very similar. I mean, the stones on the right are much bigger, but There are also comparable massive stones in Peru that are as big as the Osirian blocks here in Egypt. So it's just a similarity. Uh, Precision cuts, pre-Inca on the left, Egyptian on the right. The idea of just looking at the stonework, it's very, very similar in both cultures. And again, a lot of people see this today, but this is something that I put together many, many years ago, and I've always been fascinated by it. And stonemason, as master masons. This is something that people don't talk about today. These were master masons. Period. That's it. I don't need to say anything else. The people that built this on the left were master masons.
That's no Ashler.
Well, it's no Ashler, but look at who built this. Was this a master mason or some guy that didn't know what he was doing?
Definitely master
on
mason.
The right too. On the right too. He doesn't have to be a perfect Ashler to be a master mason. You have to know what you're doing.
It's a close enough Ashler.
But look, what was the guy that built.
Well, it's 99% of the way they're Ashler. Whether you're talking about the right or the left, the guy who put the stone together knew what the hell he was doing, and that's definitely a master mason. That's definitely somebody who has been studying in stone for a very long time.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's it. Again, we see the stone clamps, which we talked about earlier, the keystone cuts, what they're called today, the triptych. This is a couple of Peruvian temples in Peru up here. This is near Lake Titicaca, and this is I forgot the name of the town. This is a triptych temple here, and on the right here again, Egyptian triptych temples. The Egyptians built many, many triptych temples. So did the Inca and pre-Inca cultures. This is just a small example of 4 triptych temples built by both cultures. Let's see. Elongated skulls, which we talked about earlier.
Now, there was one question for me from somebody who was in YouTube chat with regards to the elongated skulls, which was the one, and they write the one odd thing about the elongated skulls, and maybe you'd be able to offer some opinion or insight into this, is that the forebrain, being the skulls that they're elongated backwards, how does that relate to, let's say, the God self? Does it add to the third eye, or is it just a matter of the surgery adding the extra space to be able for the brain to grow? How would that work out in your opinion?
I have no idea, but it's not something I really understand, and I don't know.
Nope.
But
how does phrenology or the shape of the skull influence consciousness? That's a very difficult thing to answer.
No, I still I know, but that's just a YouTube chat question that we get along the way. But
it's cool. If I had a good answer, if I had any kind of insight, anything, I would say it. I just don't know. It's a great question. I just don't know the answer. I've seen the elongated skulls all over the world. It's not just in Peru and Egypt. It's all over the world, and so it's fascinating to me.
You'd need to study a live elongated skull.
Which there exists today.
Could you scrape off some DNA from that giant-headed skull and create a person in a petri dish and then raise them to be a human being and then look at their brain tissue? I think that's
right. It's a little morbid.
Short of that,
I think.
Well, do you want progress or do you want questions?
I want Richard to go to bed at a decent hour. That's what I want.
It's 2:15.
Oh, dear God in heaven, please continue.
No, it's all good. So here again, we talked about earlier. Here on the left is a nose ring with the duality symbol of the dragons, facing left and right. On the right, it's the Horus hawk symbol. Facing left and right is the jewelry. Obelisks, parallel obelisks here, as we can see the Chavin de Huantar on the left. I think this is in Paris. I don't remember exactly well. This is an obelisk. On the right, very parallel, very similar.
I had seen something recently. They were talking about there used to be hexagonal obelisks as opposed to four-sided obelisks. They're very rare in the world, but
I'd like to see that. That's interesting. Okay, so this is the this is a pre-Inca example of a corbel vault. You know, the whole idea being of the
North,
stepped.
south, yeah.
Well, yeah, the stepped. You know, reaching the summit, reaching the middle point, the apex of a triangle, reaching the center through steps.
If you had a cone head, you wouldn't want to hit your head on the lintel of the door as you walk through.
Well, yeah, we have to be careful of that. So the next one is inward slanting architecture. Not a tremendous parallel, but you know, when you add it into the equation, it's there. It's a parallel. You know, they built their temples inward slanting, and this isn't just one. I've seen many examples of inward slanting temples in Egypt and Peru, personally. And this is the overall look. The Valley of the Kings on the right. This is in Pachacamac, near Lima, Peru on the left. It's just very similar looking. You know, it has a similar look to it. That's it. There's nothing more than that, really. Again, inward slanting architecture, pre-Inca, Inca on the left. I think this is the Coricancha in Cusco. And on the right, it's an Egyptian temple.
Have they ever, like, when they look at those temples and they look at the walls, do they ever, like, start to dig out some of the corners and look at how they laid the foundation and packed the foundation underneath those megalithic stones? Because I know when you look at, like, modern videos of guys building retaining walls and how they have to do... You know, you have to use crushed stone and super compact the stone before they start to lay their retaining walls down to have them structurally sound, because of there's the hydrodynamic forces of water and stuff building up behind those walls. That if they were building to try to accommodate for heavy amounts of water and stuff like that, they have to build the walls in very particular ways. And I haven't seen anybody talk about the underbelly of how those stones were laid, or looking under the blocks at how they leveled the area, or what kind of materials are under those foundational blocks.
Right. And to my knowledge, I don't know of any real serious studies that do that. Although I find it fascinating as well. When I was 17, 18 years old, we built buildings, small buildings in New York City. I worked for a construction company, and I have experience actually working for years in construction. And, just a lot, hearing these archaeologists, they don't, probably most of them don't have the same experience that I've had, which is, putting together these buildings and putting the concrete in place and digging the foundations and making sure that the foundations are level and all this. They don't have that experience, and they don't really understand what goes into cutting stone, laying stone, brickwork, masonry, stone masonry. I have that experience, and I can tell you it's not easy stuff. It's very difficult. And, looking at this stonework,
they don't talk about the footings enough. It doesn't get nearly as much publicity as the architecture, obviously, but...
Right, footings and just cutting the stone. I mean, this is advanced stuff. This is not easy stuff, but they gloss over it. They gloss right over it and say, well, the ancients did it, and so it was easy. It wasn't. It was very difficult. And look at the example that we have right here on the screen. I mean, I'd love to see an archaeologist do this, Spend 10 years of your life cutting stone, and I bet you couldn't do this, because this is advanced stuff. Just the symbolism. Look at the symbolism. On the lower part here, we have twin serpents on the left, the Inca and pre-Inca. They put twin serpents. Again, we have the symmetry, which symbolizes duality. On the left is probably the sun, and the right is probably the moon. Actually, reverse. Right is sun, left is moon. But it's the same idea here in the Egyptian temple. The twin serpents here, flanking the Aten sun disk symbol, left and right. The balance of the opposites. That's the key. It's always the key with all these ancient cultures. The balance of the serpents. See here on the right, It's the Egyptian balance of the serpents. On the left, this is the pre-Inca and Inca balance of serpents. And the sun symbol here on the right, the Egyptian. On the left, the sun symbol of the Inca, pre-Inca cultures. And they also look at the forehead. They put the sun symbol on the forehead as kind of an awakened third eye, you know. And on the left, we see that as well. These are just examples, but
he's not looking quite as much of an enlightened human being on the left.
Yeah, well, but the symbolism is there. I've seen a lot of God Self icons with the sun symbol on the forehead. And, you know, it's tough for us to say. What we see is a circle on the forehead, I would say, is a very strong indicator of a self-realized being, you know, even if it doesn't look like it in terms of the face or in terms of...
That's a very, very self-realized human being. Huge third eye. Here's the classic tumi, what they're called, the knives, the Inca tumi symbols. This is almost like a half sun rising. These little S symbols, I don't know if you could see them, but these little S symbols, you know, this is something that you see in most ancient cultures. It's the back and forth, the duality going back and forth, night and day, and night and day. That's really what this is saying. And also the zigzag as well. The Greeks have a sort of version of that too. It's not as rounded out, but it's more of the double spiral, but there's more square looking. You see, right? It's in a lot of the Greek motifs.
Yeah. Yep. Zigzag. Think of yin yang, the word. Look at this zigzag here, and think of the word zigzag, and think of the word yin yang. It almost sounds exactly alike. Yin yang, zigzag, and that's what this is.
It's the same syllable usage.
Yeah, and that's what it is. You know, free your mind and lock into the parallel there. Zing zang. You know, that's what these are. Zing zangs. It's an idea here showing that you know, that underlying all of material creation is the same duality. And this duality is shown not only in the zigzag and not only in the Chinese yin-yang, but also in these S symbols, these, you know, going from one side, going to the other. Every up has a down. Every light has a dark. Right, the checkerboard floor. You know, that's it. Boom, that's the key. The animal on the forehead is showing importance to the forehead. Showing that the awakened forehead, you know, this is where the third eye resides. This is where the awakened consciousness. There's an animal. Notice that on the left there's the owl, on the right there's the serpent. I mean, these are, damn it, man, these are the two most powerful animals in nature, or two of the most powerful animals in nature. The owl is able to spin his head 360 degrees, seeing the entire sphere of the circle, you know, seeing all sides of the circle, not just the yin side, not just the yang side, but the entirety of the circle. And the serpent is the animal that's symbolic of the Kundalini awakening, and the idea that you can slow your skin. You know, a serpent is a great symbol of the soul. In that sense,
well, that's the idea. Like the serpent it has several symbolic connotations, either of rebirth or of impregnation in terms of being able to create. And that's, if you hear that whining, that's Tyson, who wants in. He's the dog of the den, and he's the dog whose den we are in currently.
The mascot,
yeah, he's the mascot, as it were. We're one of them anyway. Whereas the owl, it's the idea of impregnation of ideas. It's the concept. It's more of the higher self, but still they do have the same parallel. The difference is that when it comes to the pre-Inca, their artificers were shit, whereas the Egyptians actually knew what they were doing. I'm seeing, like, you know, actual representative art versus, you know, caricature art that you would see in the Saturday morning cartoons for politics. there's a big disparity in terms of the quality of how they represent the actual person. If Alex, if you're catching my drift here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I would probably disagree. I would see it as being, the Egyptians, in my opinion, the Egyptians were.
Some people are okay with caricatures. Other people want highly technical art.
Right. That's a perfect way to put it. There were a lot of people. What kind of art is that called when it's not the exact picture, but it's the
expressionist?
Expressionist. That's it. I'm sorry. It's almost 3:00 in the morning, and I'm spent. The whole idea of it doesn't have to look exactly like the real thing in order for it to be, what they're trying to express, and that's what I think we see on the left. I think it's beautiful. I think they're parallel. I see them, the artificers, the craftsmen, being more or less parallel. That's what I see here.
When you can cast gold into a lifelike human face, then you can critique it.
That's a good point. That I guess speaks to what I'm trying to say. All right, moving right along. Third eye symbol in the middle of a circle. Nazca. This is a Nazca artifact in Peru on the left, and this is obviously the Eye of Ra. Some people call it the Eye of Horus on the right, symbolic of the third eye, the awakened consciousness. That's what it is. Again, the reed boats. We talked about that before.
Awesome, love it.
I mean,
Spiral.
It's a good thing in the ancient world, probably in particular, to be constantly reminding your populace and your community of the high-mindedness that they should walk about with.
Or that I'm on a boat. I'm on a boat with.
That's what it was all about.
With my flippy
That's what it was all about.
I'm on a boat.
Picture yourself a fully realized, intelligent human being in a world of barbarians. And if you wanted to both defend yourself and uplift the other people in the community,
you build a giant fucking boat.
The iconography is important for such a notion.
This is true.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Alex. That's exactly right. And I think that's the world that the Egyptians lived in. Look, everything in Egyptian culture, every item, every pyramid, every mummy, all the details of the mummy, every mirror, every piece of furniture, every vase was designed and artistically created to show the idea of an inner alchemy that was needed to show humans that they were not animals, but they were divine, that they were a higher self that had incarnated into the lower self, and that at death would return to the higher self. That's it. That's the teaching right there.
If you've ever had a chance to chat with an old veteran bouncer at a bar, they'll tell you one of the best ways that they could ever defend themselves is by talking with a potential assailant. If you can make someone continue to talk and activate their higher mindedness, it's very, very difficult to throw a punch and to have a conversation simultaneously.
At the same time,
as soon as you activate that animalistic brain, it's very hard to have higher cognitive function simultaneously when you're fighting.
Which is why you got to hit them right in the fucking nuts.
It's like try spouting poetry and having a karate fight simultaneously. It's a difficult thing for the brain to do.
I used to run nightclubs, sir.
If you can kick people's higher consciousness into gear, you prevent the fight in the first place.
I hear you.
Or again, you hit them right in the nuts.
So there's sort of like
it's done.
There's an uplifting defense mechanism to some of the iconography.
Sorry.
Chris is going in an entirely different direction here.
I can see that. No, I hear you. You know what? It's funny. I don't know why I bring this up, but I watched a documentary once about if you ever fall into the enemy's hands, like if you're ever in the jungles of Peru or the jungles of whatever, anywhere in the world where an enemy has captured you, tell them your name and speak to them on their levels. Tell them that you have children. Tell them that your job. Speak to them as a human being and make eye contact and be a human to them. Don't just be somebody who we can sacrifice or cut the head off of or whatever. And that's a good chance of surviving, because just like you're saying, Alex, making them see that you're on their level, equal to them, makes them recognize the humanity in you, and they recognize the humanity in them as well.
I remember that there's a McKenna line where he's talking about people taking drugs and finding themselves in bad states of mind, and he says something along the lines of, if you ever find yourself in the meat locker of human consciousness, like that really dark, nightmarish state, the best way, or one of the best things you can do to get out of it, is to sing.
Or to kick
it's
him
like
in the nuts.
it's like you're
Really,
literally
really
changing
hard.
the television station of your consciousness through song.
You know,
It's very, very powerful for changing your consciousness. Music is a very powerful tool.
and again, if you're the Homer Simpson,
I wanted to mention that when you were looking, the flutes and stuff came
you
out.
make him look the other way. You kick him in the nuts. You run like hell. Just saying. That is also a possibility. It may not work in the high-minded sense, but in terms of survival, when you're in the jungle, when you have, like, you know, people with
poison blow darts.
Then you're fucked. It doesn't matter at that point.
Just wins every time.
Pretty much.
Okay. Back to ancient pottery.
Back to ancient pottery. I'm sorry, Mr. I know it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and this is probably extremely hilarious.
I have to go straight line method here with Chris tonight.
I know. I'm there too. No, look at the spirals. The spiral. What does the spiral show us? Circle and center. Find the center. You know, find the center of who you are. That's the key to who you are.
On a serious note, that spiral symbol has also been around for about 14,000 years, give or take. So
Yep.
it's been seen even longer, like 28,000 years. If you go to like some of the
used to
older
symbolize time.
Well, I'm not even sure what it used to symbolize, because, again, you're talking about cave art that has been around for 20, 30, 40,000 years, pre-Diluvian, like pre-Diluvian.
Both
that
metaphorically
symbol has been
and
around.
literally a representation of time, I think, is one of the interpretations
it's a possibility.
of the spiral.
But still, like, we're seeing pre-Inca versus the... that's the thing. Like, people will bitch on the the Nazca lines and say, like, oh, it was just like it was like some path that they used to take for symbolic purposes. I'm sorry. Like, you used to be able to see that from the air. First of all, you could see it from the air. Second of all, it is the same symbol for that tail that you can see through that pottery, through any French, through Norse, through Germanic, Eastern Asian cave art. It is a symbol that has transited time for the last 30,000 years or longer.
Yeah, where's the erosion on the Nazca lines? Yeah,
there is none, because there's no water, no air. There's no wind.
That's very interesting. You know, one thing, when I was in Nazca in 2002,
what kind of altitude there? Are they, like, pre-ice age? Like, they just weren't affected? Like,
I don't know.
How old are the Nazca lines?
There's something very special about the lines, but check this out. We had gone to an observatory. What it is really a mountain, or not even a mountain, a little hill. And I kept thinking, that hill looks like a mound, and that mound looks like it used to be a pyramid. Anyway, we stopped the car, we all ran up this mound, this hill.
Anyway.
And I have it on video. This is very cool. It's very old video. But when I would videotape, I noticed that all the lines were pointing to this mound. And the lines would go off literally. I mean, you could see it. You could see that literally they were miles and miles. They would go for miles in the distance, 10, 20, 30 miles up the mountain. The line would go all the way straight down the plain and then all the way up a mountain, pointing to the hill that we were standing on. And it did this in every single direction that I videotaped. And I'm not sure how to actually convert the videotape to a way that I can show it on YouTube. And even if I did, the quality is so poor that I'm not even sure you could see it. But I plan on returning, and I plan on an HD video actually showing this incredible thing, because it's just
I'll film it in
magnificent.
4K if you bring me on the expedition.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm down. Well, I go to the Algarve quite often, so if I have to, where's the microphone?
Where are you going with this?
I go to the Algarve, so like next time I'm in Portugal, I will skip across the border, and I'll come get the videotape, and we'll have some, wine or some coffee or what have you, and I will record that for.
I'll film it in 4K. Chris will help with the uploading.
Damn it! Okay, you do. Okay.
He'll be there. We'll all be there. It'll be fantastic.
On.
More stuff. Floating deities. Nothing too big. I don't have anything else to report. Dream-like floating deities. Parallel art. I think it's self-evident. This is an interesting one. On the left, here we talked about the Aker lions in Egypt on the right already. We talked about how the lions were the dual lions of yesterday and tomorrow. On the left, this is...
I was going to say, like on the left, it looks like one of the cheetahs there on the bottom right corner is sort of sniffing a lotus flower.
Well, actually, what it is twin pumas, and they're symmetrically balanced around a sun symbol, and that's a very, very interesting parallel. And I remember I put this up a few times on my Facebook page, and I got like 2 likes. And to me, this is just a major discovery. This is unbelievable. Look at this. I mean,
we're dropping the real shit here, right in the den of Laura.
This is major stuff, man. Look at this. This is a sun symbol in the middle, balanced by twin feline animals, and they're symmetrically balanced. I mean, look at this for a second. And it's sad to me that so few people see the power of this.
The Egyptian, I think it was the Egyptian lotus. Like there was some pretty strong psychedelic drugs in some of the flowers that they were using in the Egyptian culture.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you.
I saw why is a cheetah sniffing the flower? Maybe it's nothing, but maybe it's a reference. But
yeah, I think it's a possibility right there. I totally agree. It's very possible.
So, moving on?
Moving on.
I'm wondering what's on the other side of the other puma or whatever there. The black.
I think that's it. Yeah, we reached the end of the slide there.
We've reached the end. Whoa, shit.
Until next time.
My mind's been blown. Like, this is what I've been... Like, honestly, Alex, this is what I've been telling you ever since I said, okay, we're just got to come on this show to blow our fucking minds, is exactly this reason. Because he's gone into the shit so fucking deep. Like, dude, come on.
Amazing work, Richard.
Amazing work. Oh, my God.
Glad you guys like it.
Thank you for taking time this evening to share this with us.
Now, going across the Pacific.
Right. I'm going to go through these pretty quick. It's almost 3 a.m. here, and I'm getting a little tired.
But I'm getting called out to St. Patrick's Day festivities myself, so...
All right, cool. I'll speed through these real quick. Check it out. Look, on the left, okay, these are, on the left is Bali.
Indonesia.
On the right is Mayan, as you can see here. Okay, so you have the cave, the 2 eyes with the mouth open, and it's the same exact parallel in the Maya. 2 eyes with the mouth open. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? That's a big parallel.
It's the same thing.
Same thing, exactly. So as we keep going here, we see the same pyramids. Mm-hmm. Balinese pyramid, Mayan pyramid. That's number 2. Number 3, stairways going down, ending in twin serpents or twin dragon-like beings. Right, you see them here.
Mm-hmm.
Left and right.
Yep.
Right, on the right, it's the same thing. Serpentine banisters ending in serpentine beings. That's number 3. Here we have a corbel vault architecture, Balinese. Corbel vault architecture, Mayan. The serpent's head, Balinese. Serpent's head, Mayan. Same one we talked about already. And here we have statues with the Chakana cross. The 4, we talked about this earlier.
Chakana.
The 4, right? The Chakana on the right and the left, same exact parallel. The mudras, what they're called, hand gestures to give you power, to harness spiritual energy.
If you
Balinese,
jump back one slide and look at what you call the Chakuna.
Chakana.
Have you ever seen any of the imagery from Edward Leeds Scallion with the Coral Castle?
Yeah,
I've the tablet of Samash. They've got it's like a Venn diagram, but there's 4. They're dealing with anti-gravity and stuff like that. It's down that rabbit hole.
I don't remember seeing anything like the Jacana in Coral Castle.
Email it to him. It's 3 a.m. there. He probably.
All right.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. Yeah, definitely email me. I want to check it out.
When he's got some sleep in him.
Okay. Well, it's like connecting the dots between the Jacana and the Tablet of Samash and this sort of quad Venn diagram thing. Maybe
that.
Those dots are just connected in my head, but
No.
I'll send you something.
No, the next one.
Maybe
Just
it's reality.
one comment.
Mudras?
Yeah,
Balinese Mayan?
The mudras.
Third
that's very similar. Whenever I do my meditation empowerment, that's the same symbolism and hand motions I use.
Yep.
It is.
You're
Third eye
an
dot
enlightened
on the
individual,
forehead.
Chris.
Look at the dot on the forehead. The same third eye dot in Bali and Mayan. Same third eye forehead dot. That's the same. Look, this is a great one. Look here on the bottom. Look at the hands. Look at the gesture here in the Bali. Look at the feet. Look at the way the feet are. The left foot. He's kneeling with the right. He's kneeling with the right. He's holding a torch with the left. He's holding a torch. This is parallel. This is exactly parallel. Period. Done. There's no. Look at the left. Look at the right arm and the hand. Look at the way it's sticking out. And this is it. You can't get any more parallel than this. You know.
Look at the eyes on that Balinese one.
Look at the face. You know. And this is across the Pacific Ocean.
It's evoking it's evoking fear in me thousands of years later.
Well, it's also the fact that it's the same culture, like across the entire ocean. You know, it would actually take 220 days minimum to be able to cross the Pacific. 220 days. That is like
that's why you had to go like
that straight one line.
East.
That's straight east one line.
Or straight west, so you could follow the sun, maybe.
Well, it's a possibility, but still.
Otherwise, you'll end up in Antarctica or something crazy.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Antarctica again.
Presumably, if they're building these giant temples, they would have something like a compass.
Balinese and Mayan temples.
Carry on.
Yep. With the face above the doorway.
That is
see the
beautiful.
Faces? Yeah, see the face? It's very parallel. And there's a reason for that, which I can't get into right now. Elephant deities. Elephant on the Balinese side. Elephant on the Mayan side. Here we are, my triptych temples. Balinese triptychs.
Mayan elephant.
Mayan elephant.
10,000 BC.
Mayan.
We'll go into that afterwards. Like, listen to Randall Carlson. It existed there, but like we're talking around the time of the last ice age, just before.
Again, triptychs. Balinese triptych here on the left. Mayan triptychs on the right. I don't want to get too far into it because my mind is starting to go. And I guess there's one more set. Triptych temples. Let's just go through real quick. This is just for fun. This has become like a meme.
Africa, America, Asia. Boom.
Yeah, I got tired of really labeling everything. It's just, you know what? There's triptychs everywhere. The pyramid cultures across the world all built triptych temples. And that's what it is. And, you know, I don't think there can be any more doubt about it.
I've definitely seen
these are
that
memes.
Are
they called memes or memes? I'm not sure.
Memes is short for memetic information.
Yeah.
Or just
these
jokes.
are memes.
I think that was originally coined by Richard Dawkins, wasn't it?
These are the original photos that actually knew Richard by.
Memes are the new genes in terms of replication power.
But still, like, you got like Cambodia, you got India, you got China, you got Egypt, you got Mexico.
Evolutionary perspective.
Like that's
pyramids and triptychs. That's what it was all about back then. That's the universal religion that they all shared. And these are the triptychs of the cultures, of the ancient cultures. I collected them from all over the world. I didn't bother to put the actual names to them. The Maya in the Americas built triptychs. The Egyptians built triptychs, as you can see here. The Chinese built triptychs, triptych temples, what I call. The Romans built triptychs. The Khmer, Angkor Wat, Cambodia, triptychs. Look at that. This is powerful stuff, man. You know, this is it. You know, how did people miss this? How did archaeologists miss this and historians? But they did. They missed it. And I found it. and this is it. That's what I wrote about and written in stone, and I also devote a couple of chapters to it in the missing link.
Now, Richard, one of the interesting parts about this entire thing is that you were actually following me on Twitter long before I started this podcast up. Like back when I was like an advertising, copywriter, like, award-winning creative director or whatever, and like you started following me. I'm just like this Richard Cassaro guy is pretty fucking cool. I started like reading into your shit, and I'm like, this isn't just shit. This is like awesome, in-depth research and knowledge, which I've got to share to the world with a lot of people.
Cool.
And it just goes to show that this type of knowledge seeking crosses lines beyond just people who are podcasters or researchers or people who are knowledge seekers or individuals who just read up on cool shit every now and again. This is about just trying to find truth and trying to be able to find that modicum of truth of where we came from as a species, as a people, as a civilization. And you're one of like the main guys who's put in the hard work to be able to show the differences in terms of the architecture, in terms of the symbolism. And I have to give you a hats off.
You've done the work to do some
Actual
reconciliation of those historical cultures.
To be able to bring this together, because like you've blown my mind over the last 3 hours, and I'm humbled and I'm honored to be able to have you on the show, and like what I hope to be a long running podcast, like you're episode 27 of what we're going to do for the next foreseeable future, and I very much doubt that we are going to come to an episode unless you're back on here, where we're going to have like such a knowledge dump and such a fantastic amount of lore just dropped on the listeners at home. And I'm thankful for you taking the time out of your day and your night and then your day again to give it to us. It is much appreciated, and you are appreciated wholeheartedly. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's been tough for me, especially the past 2-3 years or with Facebook. I mean, honestly, a lot of people just grab my stuff. They just step over the watermark. They cross out the watermark, and they just pass it around. And it's hurtful because I've really spent my life doing this type of stuff, and I care. I want the younger generations to awaken. I want to awaken myself. I want to help people. I want to help myself. But you know what? I also want the recognition, because when people buy my books, it gives me money to further research this stuff. Otherwise, I have to actually work for a living, and I don't want to do that. I want to delve deeper into this type of thing. And so right now my challenge is to try to make it lucrative for me so that I can continue this type of journey. And so far I've been lucky I sell books and things like that, but I want to keep it going. I want to get the recognition. I want to get people to support me and to help me.
You got to crowdsource. You got to do a Kickstarter for your Indiana Jones campaigns.
Yeah, I
think we're all trying to figure out a way to do that.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking toward that. I have a group of people behind me, and that's good, but I want to grow it. And you guys are helping me by getting the word out there, and I really appreciate that. I really appreciate your interest in my work and commending me on the work that you've seen. I thank you so much. That means a lot to me, and I want to thank you guys for that.
Well, it's much appreciated. And there was a massive outpouring of support and love from the YouTube chat. I know, Wayne's saying thank you, Richard. Kevin saying thank you. Everyone's saying thank you.
Thank you for bringing your value to the show.
It's much appreciated. And
that's great.
And Denver's saying thank you as well, even though I know that he's waiting to give his sandwich report after this, just as a plug to everyone who's out there. And I know you got to get to bed, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning where you are. And you know what? I'm just going to say thank you very much to joining us. And again, have yourself a wonderful night. Sleep well. Enjoy your weekend. And you're a friend of the Den of Lore. You're on my Facebook chat, so I always catch your stuff. And I'm gonna
hope to have you on the show again soon. Maybe we can discuss Magical Egypt 2 at some point together. And
we do random calls of people on my Skype list. We'll try and random call you at some point in a prearranged, not prearranged fashion. Wink, wink.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, Chris, Alex, thank you very much. It really was my pleasure. Really, thank you so much. And have a great day. Okay,
Thanks
guys?
very much. Sleep well. Cheers.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Take care. Wow. Holy shit, man. That was fucking awesome. You know, like, I'm sorry, like, in the den of lore, we've got my another brother of another mother. Come say hello, Patrice.
Why, hello.
Just come into the camera. This is another brother of mine, Patrice. He's been on a couple shows of mine. He's here for St. Patty's Day, and I know he's here to collect me for. Is Tyson whining outside? Oh dear God, heaven.
Maybe you should come
Cue
in
outro
too.
music.
No, we have
This is
to.
going to get
join us,
festive
you know?
We
quickly.
need Denver on the show. We need Denver on the show. So Denver is like we're gonna have Denver on the show now. Just as yes, Kevin, sandwich. It's sandwich time. It is sandwich time. So we're going to have the sandwich report from Denver Michaels at the end of the show. And so I know that we've been doing this whole send Denver Michaels a sandwich contest. If you've got a sandwich recipe, send it to info@denoflore.com or hit us at Twitter at Den of Lore or Facebook at Den of Lore. Just like fucking like just put Den of Lore into Google and get our name. And send us your sandwich recipe. Whether it's bologna on fucking rye, whether it's a tuna fish casserole on rye, or some Sasquatch dick on rye. Either way, like we've got some. We actually have some sandwich connoisseurs in our crowd, and I think we have Denver on the channel. Denver Michaels, please give us your presence, sir. Are you here? Denver.
Hello.
Hey, Denver.
Can
How
you
you
hear me?
doing? I can
Hey,
hear you.
oh, man.
And man, it's going quite well. How are you doing?
Good, man. It was an awesome show.
Holy fuck! Are you kidding me? Like that was phenomenally fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, how do I follow that up with my stupid sandwich report, man?
As my mom would say, with your fantastic southern drawl.
What you need is a triptych sandwich that has 3 parts to it.
Well,
That's
what do
exactly
You
it.
take exactly.
Well, you know, we're going to take a triptych sandwich
3 bites.
from a southern drawl with a little bit of West Virginian in there, with a little bit of Virginian, and just add some cryptozoology into the mix.
That sounds
and
good.
At some point, we will have the incomparable Denver
A
Michaels
Balinese
on
triptych
our-
sandwich.
And again, you can slap me. I know, like, thank goodness we don't have any social justice warriors on our channel, because holy fuck, I'd be hitting with some cultural appropriation with this shit on this show.
Yeah, they're the worst.
Oh my
Have you
God.
seen justiceporn.com?
No, I haven't.
That's a thing.
No, it's not a thing. It's a thing I know, but it's not a thing on this show. So, Denver Michaels, the sandwich report. I know that you've gotten some fantastic sandwich recipes in. Now, if you can give the listeners at home a recount of what the prize is for.
Okay, the prize is all 3 of my books, paperbacks, signed, and 2 of them are already out, but the 3rd one will be coming out here in the first part of April. So whoever wins gets all 3 paperbacks.
And they'll be signed by you?
Yes, absolutely. And if I may, I've been thinking about this. I would like to add a couple prizes, if you don't mind.
Holy fuck. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do was the runner-up, I would like to give them a book of their choice. Whichever one of the 3 books they want, I'll give them that. But what I would also like to do, because we don't like people to feel bad, so whatever happens to be the lowest scoring sandwich, we'll give them a free book of their choice too.
Okay, so basically, the top 2 sandwiches. So if you're the winner, you get all 3 books signed by Denver Michaels. The second place gets 1 book signed by Denver Michaels. The third place.
No, the worst.
The worst.
The lowest.
The lowest grade gets still 1 book by Denver Michaels.
Right.
I have an idea here.
Okay. Well,
If someone has an unusual sighting, because Denver Michaels can only be in one place at one time, if someone has an unusual photo or an unusual sighting or a video or something like that they can send in to Denver Michaels, on that special occasion, he or we will make a sandwich and send it to the submitter of the strange photo.
That's awesome.
And if you happen to get a shot of Bigfoot's dick,
if it's good, we'll put it in the next book.
Oh Lord, this is gonna be something here.
Okay, I'm not imposing on the sandwich contest anymore.
Katrina from Cheshire is like, "Good night, everybody." I'm like, "Okay, I think Alex is done." So, okay, so so the first two. Okay, so top person gets all 3 books signed.
Right.
The top second gets
a book of their choice.
A book of their choice signed. The third person
and
gets just a book.
The lowest rated sandwich. It's the lowest rated.
Just gets a book.
A book of their choice.
A book of their choice, but not signed.
Yeah, we don't want anybody to feel bad for having the lowest rated sandwich, so I'm going to give them a book of their choice too.
Okay, now apparently we're setting ourselves up for trolling with that worst sandwich category. No, trust me. If they're
That's
bullshit,
okay. Troll me. I don't care.
It's Noxy. No, if there was a shit recipe that's sent, and trust me, I'm just going to fucking discount it. I would disqualify that shit.
That works.
So anyway, we have sent you several sandwiches over the last couple of days. Please, Mr. Denver Michaels, give us your report. We need to know.
Okay, so what we had from Kevin in the UK. He sent in
Kevin Stevenson,
a homemade peanut butter and jam sandwich, and the jam was homemade strawberry jam.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean it was really good. You know, I'll be honest with you, peanut butter and jam or peanut butter and jelly sandwich is something I kind of sleep on, you know, and it was a really strong sandwich. So the one thing he in his recipe, it calls for homemade bread. So after my wife making the jam for me, I hated to ask her to make me homemade bread, and I'm too lazy to do it myself. So I just had the sandwich on regular bread.
That's wifely support right there.
Yeah, but I don't want to penalize him for my laziness, so I gave him an extra half a point on the sandwich because I figure that, you know, the homemade bread would, you know, raise it by half a point. So I gave him an 8.5 on the sandwich out of 10. So
like all these sandwiches have been like in like the 8s or higher. Do we need a shit like I know, like, you know, it's Noxy is like oh, I can send in any sandwich recipe I want. Do I need somebody to send in like a dirt sandwich to like get like a low 5 or a low 4?
I mean,
is your like your palate that finely tuned that everything's that awesome?
No, I have a very immature palate. It's not finely tuned at all. I just, I kind of, to be honest with you, I kind of start with a baseline of 6.5 or 7. You know, just being food. You know what I'm saying? It should.
No, I get you.
It should be at least over a 5. So I kind of start like maybe around 6.5 and kind of. You know, like go up or down from there. But so far, I mean, everybody sent in a pretty strong sandwich. So, you know, I can't, I mean, for real, I'm not just giving fake scores. You know, the ones that I've tried have been, you know, been strong. And let's see, what else? Kevin from Nebraska.
Kevin.
Now, this was a good sandwich. This was a buffalo chicken grilled cheese. So I mean that just sounds awesome, right? And I gave that a 9.25.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, and this was a little caveat to my scoring system. Once you get up to 9, I go quarter-point increments from there. You know, that'll avoid, you know, like a bunch of ties and stuff. So I gave him a 9.25. That I'll be honest with you. I mean, you know, we don't want to just crown him just yet, but that's going to be a tough sandwich to beat because I love buffalo chicken, I love buffalo wings, and I love grilled cheese. And you know, to put it all together, I'd never thought of that before. It was just genius. And it really worked well. I deviated from his recipe just a tad. I went a little light on the celery, a little light on the onion, and I went heavy on the hot sauce. But I'll tell you what, it was a good sandwich.
Well, it's fantastic, and I know my mother has wanted to send in her recipe. I have not had a chance to write down her recipe. She broke her ankle this week, so ice in Ottawa, it's kind of fucked up. We're gonna I want
excuses do not a sandwich make, Chris.
Yeah, okay. This is true.
Fuck you, Alex. No,
I'm gonna send in a recipe for a spicy eggplant and meatball sandwich.
A spicy egg. Can I leave out the eggplant?
Sure, we'll go with that.
It's pickled spicy eggplant. It's very different.
So
you find it in the Italian specialty stores.
Send in your sandwich recipes to info@denoflaw.com or to denoflaw.com.
It sounds awful, but it's delicious.
So Kevin's leading at 9.25.
9.25, yes. Kevin is in the lead right now. And Kevin from the UK is right behind him.
Oh, shit.
Grimsteak, unfortunately, is last place with an 8. But I was going to tell Grimsteak, if he's listening, to hit me up with a direct message on Twitter, because he sent his recipe in like weeks and weeks ago. So he deserves a little something. So if he just sends me a direct message on Twitter, I'm going to hook him up with one of my books.
Well, I got one of your books for Christmas, and Denver, it was one of the most heartwarming presents I've received this year so far.
Well, I appreciate that.
Oh man, it's fantastic. Especially since my mom likes your. It's not just the fact that you're on the show and you have the knowledge. It's the fact that she loves the Southern accent, and it's like, that Denver Michaels guy, he's good. Have him on more. I'm like, okay, yes, Mom, I will listen to you because you raised me so far. Okay, and that is the reason why he's on the show, Alex. Because
I tell her I appreciate
awesome.
Her support.
So, ladies and gentlemen, and Alex is freaking out in the YouTube chat going, oh my god, after work snack, damn! Yes, man, it fucking kicks ass. So, Denver, you get the outro song this week.
Awesome.
So, did you want Spellbound, or did you want,
we're gonna have to mix up the variety on this.
Scatter Knowledge?
I like Spellbound pretty good.
We'll go with that, okay, so, oh, it's the actual outro song. Oh, shit, there we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank you very much for joining us on this fantastic journey with Richard Cassaro and Denver Michaels. I've had about a quarter of a bottle of Northern Harvest Rye. I will not say who it's from because they're not sponsoring us, but still, it's a fantastic drink.
Next time you walk through a door, walk through 3 doors in triptych manner.
In triptych format. Walk in, walk out, walk in, back again. So, I'm going to show you who our next episode is from. Now, let's turn this up a little bit more. So, yeah, we've got a double episode in a couple of weeks, but still, next week on the program, load up, please.
Same bad time, same bad channel.
Actually, no, it's going to be at 8:30 next week.
Oh.
There we go. That's the one right there.
See, if you only had to memorize how to make blocks, this wouldn't be an issue.
No, it's because the computer.
A wide variety of things you have to memorize.
It's not about that. It's
visual cues.
There we go. Just gonna close this down. There we go. So, on the program next week, Stephen Myers, we're going to be talking about the building of the Great Pyramid. Now, Stephen Myers has also been one of the proponents of the water pump theory and the building of the Great Pyramid via the water method, which we're going to go into great detail next week, Friday, the 24th of March at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Alex is raising his eyebrows at me. Yes, that's going to be the regular time, which means that you can get off work, start drinking with me, start drinking with us, and we'll have a good time. Also, don't forget to send your sandwich recipes at info@denoflore.com.
Grab your beef jerky and candy.
Yeah, we try and sustain ourselves any way we can on this show as the show goes forward. But yes, follow us at denoflore.com, and for the love of God, check out our Patreon. That's it.
Oh, you got it that time.
Well, yeah, I did finally. Okay, so this is the show. Good night, everybody. Chill out, and we'll enjoy another glass of Glen in the Den next week. This is Chris George Zuger and Alchemical Alex signing off.
You're cut off. I'm not drinking anymore.